Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? What's up? Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. Today is Thursday, December 4th. 337 days into the new year. We have 28 days left. Live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here. Rainy Burbank, California for KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network. I am your oh-so-humble host, Jimmy Church. What is up? Welcome to everybody listening around the world, all across this great country of ours, east and west, north and south, up and down, hither and thither, to and fro, Australia, New Zealand, China, Soviet Union, Russia, Taiwan, Hong Kong, over on the other side, the UK, Ireland, Scotland, Wales, Netherlands, Germany, Italy. What am I leaving out? Brazil, all of South America, Panama, Costa Rica. Right now, we are lighting it up. Welcome, everyone. Big salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world, fighting the good fight for us during this holiday season, away from your families. We salute you. Our right to do this show, the First Amendment, the Constitution, that's what life is about. Podcast up and updated. That's right. Go and subscribe. $2 a month. You're listening to my voice right now. Go and do it. Help support the show. Faders.org is rocking. Can't forget, we are going to do Fader Cinema this Saturday, and we will do the sneak peek and test run of the new JimmyChurchRadio.com website for all of you Fader knots. It's our gift to you. Check it out. I want you to break it. Get in there and test drive this. I mean, run the wheels off. We'll do that this Saturday. So excited about that. I hope everybody thinks it's what I think it is. I think it's really cool. Big, big, big step up. Are you guys ready? Let's get this show cracking. As you can tell, I'm drinking Starbucks Holiday Blend. I'm on my third cup in 15 minutes. If you don't believe me, listen to this. In my Lynn Lewis Elvis mug. That's all that matters. Life is great. Let's get this show cracking. Today, actor Jeff Bridges is 65 years old. And before you think we're going to do you know what? I'm going to leave that alone. Right there. I'm just going to leave that alone. I'm not going to do any Big Lebowski quotes. It's tempting. In-N-Out Burger. 65 years old, Jeff Bridges. And, you know, for me, his best, it's not, you know what, Big Lebowski, great. You know what? No. Tron, Part 1. Tron, the original. Also today, Mogul, Jay-Z. Mogul, not a rapper, he's a mogul. Jay-Z, 45 years old. He got it done in 45 years. And this is our Twitter tonight, right here. Actress Marissa Tomei, 50. Oh, yeah, we're going there. Oh, we are so going there. The other day, Rita and I watched My Cousin Vinny front to back after the show. That's what we did. My Cousin Vinny. Today, Marissa Tomei is 50. That's called synchronicity, by the way. Kind of weird. I know Rita's kind of tripping right now. Really? It's Marissa's birthday? We just talked about her for 6 hours after the show the other night. Well, there you go. Happy birthday, Marissa Tomei. Also, today, guitarist Gary Rossington is 63. And he is a guy that thanks the good Lord above every single day when he wakes up. Why? Despite breaking both arms, both legs, both wrists, both ankles, and his pelvis in the plane crash with Leonard Skinner when it went down, he survived. He was one of 6 band members who survived that crash on October 20th, 1977, near Galesburg, Mississippi, that took the lives of Van Zandt, Steve Gaines, Cassie Gaines, one of the backup singers, and 3 others. Gary Rossington. That's a man that values life every single day. Gary Rossington, 63 years old. Happy birthday, Gary. Now, Twitter. Let's light it up right now. Are you ready? What are your favorite quotes? Let's go. Favorite quotes from My Cousin Vinny. The whole movie is one big quote. One big quote. But let's go. I know everybody has got their favorites. I've got mine. Follow us on Twitter right now at JChurch Radio. Hashtag DM Radio Net. That is the sandbox. Tonight, like every night, we will go through 2,000, 3,000 tweets in the sandbox tonight. And, wow, I've got some noise in my line. I wonder, can you guys hear that, or is it just in my headphones? That's interesting. It just might be in my cans. I don't think it's going out. I don't see it on the meters, so I will ignore it. We're going to do quotes from My Cousin Vinny tonight at the start of the show. Are you sure? I'm positive. There you go. Liam comes in strong right there. All right, at JChurch Radio, that's what you want to do. Hashtag DM Radio Net. Follow us on Facebook as well, which is, I think that's jimmychurchradio.com. YouTube is Fade to Black. KJCR Fade to Black. Everything is Fade to Black. JChurch Radio. Go follow, like, and subscribe. Lynn from Oz says it's just in your head, Jimmy. Got some kind of weird noise going on. Sounds like wind. Later tonight, tonight we have Chase Kloetzke on with us. On Tuesday, as you know, I had that little medical emergency, and we rescheduled Chase for tonight. Now, tonight is normally Fader night, where we take your calls all night. It's my favorite night of the week. So tonight we're going to have Chase on, and we're gonna have fun and do our normal conversation with Chase. But I think we should have a Fader night / Chase night. I haven't sprung this on her yet, but we'll do that when she comes on with us. And maybe about 8:30, 9 o'clock, third segment. What do you say? We just light up the phones and hang out with Chase for the last segment, last hour of the show. I'll talk her into it. Don't you worry. Sound like a plan? I think it's good. So the call-in number is 323-825-5045. If you want to Skype in, all you have to do is Fade to Black 14, the number 14, all one word, and you can Skype in as well. Email throughout the show, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Simple enough to do. You can also go over to the website, to the contact page, where we use non-NSA, specially encrypted servers if you're scared. All right? But you got to make it good. Get it past the producers here and get it in to me. If you have any questions for Chase or I during the show, you can, if you're not using TweetDeck, you should be. Download. It was an 80s flashback. Download TweetDeck. You should, and get your columns going. One should be hashtag F2BQ. That's the number 2, F2BQ, Fade to Black Questions. Get it to me. All right. Today, posted on Facebook. Check this out. Gas for less than $2 a gallon. It is a reality, at least in Oklahoma City. The lowest priced unleaded in the nation is $1.99 at the On-Q gas station at 44th and Shields in Oklahoma City. $1.99. Now, I just filled up my car here in L.A. yesterday for $2.79, and I was a happy guy. I can't believe it's that cheap. If I see $1.99 a gallon gas here in L.A., I think I'm going to lose my mind. That is the apocalypse. Let's see if it actually does. And I'm going to ask, well, I did this last week, and I'm really curious. What's everybody paying around the country? Is somebody actually doing $1.99 a gallon? And who do we have here from Oklahoma City? Obviously, we've got 100 people in Oklahoma City right now, at least, listening to the show right now. Are you guys really paying $1.99 a gallon? And if it's Oklahoma City, is it Tulsa, Kansas City, that whole area, Nebraska? Are you guys really northern Texas? $1.99 a gallon? Man, we got to get Jimmy off that corporate coffee. Hey, I'm down. There used to be here in L.A., here in the Valley on Ventura Boulevard, a place called Richard's Coffee. And he was a roaster. And he had these 4 huge roasting, I don't know what you call them, roasters in the back. And he custom roasted coffee. He shut down about 10 years ago. That stuff was amazing, and it was cheap. And he would do whatever it was right there. Hey, what is it that you like? Okay, I'll order it. I'll roast it. And I loved it, man. He was great. He's gone and replaced probably by a Starbucks. I know that there's one across the street from where he used to be. But Bob says he's paying $2.39 a gallon. Where are you? $2.39 a gallon. Really? $2.65 in Indy right now. Wow, gas has really, really, really come down. OPEC just must be upset. But you know what? We're refining it. We're only buying the oil. So I guess the cheaper that it gets, $3.15 in New York, $1.99 here in Kentucky. Cigarettes are $4 a pack. $1.99 in Kentucky. Really? Are we actually there? Wonder how long it's going to stay. Pieces of Lisa. She just said she skateboards. She doesn't use gas. Northwest Ohio. Northwest, really. Northwest. So close to Detroit. Wow. Gas is really coming down. All right, let's see here. Let me get to a couple of emails really quick before we get to the first break. Concerning Ozzy songs yesterday, 245 in Kalamazoo. I used to live in Kalamazoo, Stephen G. I did. I lived across the street from Western Michigan. Yep. And I could tell you the name of the street. I believe it was Redwood Drive, right at the top of the hill, right across the street from the mirror pond, the fountain right up the street. Yep, lived right there, Kalamazoo. All right, yesterday, Ozzy, favorite songs. Dean wrote in and said, Solitude. King B wrote in and said, Sweet Leaf. There you go. Down the road from where I lived. I know that area. There you go, Stephen G. from Kalamazoo. Ben Miller wrote about yesterday's show. Robert Hastings was such an impressive guest. What in the world does it take to show that UFOs are a true phenomenon? This is not just lights in the sky stuff. It's crazy to ignore this information gathered by Mr. Hastings. Talk about having your head buried in the sand. The military brass. That coming in from Ben Miller. Ben writes me 3 or 4 times a day, and they're all good, and I've got to weed them out. That was the best one today from Ben. Keep the guest requests coming. All of this week, minus Tuesday, which is today with Chase, all came from you. Always remember that. Keep the guest request coming. I read them all. We read them all. We chase down Chase for you. Actually, I've been listening to Chase for a long time. She's had her own show. We're going to talk about that tonight as well. Let's take a quick break. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses. We are only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Come hang out in the sandbox right now at JChurch Radio. That's what you want to do right now. Tweet at JChurch Radio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Come check it out. It's cool. It's fun. Phone the neighbors. Wake the kids. Tonight, it's Fader Night with Chase Kloetzke. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I'll be back. Don't touch that mouse. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, you have tuned into the latest phenomenon in late night talk radio, Fade to Black, starring the inimitable Jimmy Church, showcasing his continuing quest in pursuit of knowledge of the strange and paranormal. Sit back, open your mind, and let's get cracking.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. Doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil three-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444, or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Tonight we have Chase Kloetzke right here at the bottom of the hour. Let's get to some news. News that you probably don't know anything about. Well, most of it. Some of it. Why? Because you guys are smart. I'm just telling you what you already know. Today, NASA scrubbed the test launch in Florida after a series of delays of Orion, the last of which happened because some liquid oxygen fuel and drain valves failed to open during the countdown. The launch has now been rescheduled for 7:05 a.m. tomorrow. Stay up all night for nothing again. I was watching Twitter this morning. Everybody was up. Micro Singularity was going to go in video. She's right there. I hope she does tomorrow. NASA spent most of this morning's nearly 2.5-hour launch window trying to work out various obstacles and kinks before scrubbing the launch at around 9:40 a.m. ET. The first delay involved a boat. I couldn't believe that one. That came too close to the launch area. And the rest of it was wind gust and then, of course, valves that failed to open. Man, I hope it gets off tomorrow. I really do. In a single week, North Korea has brought Sony to its knees. Sony Pictures is dealing with more than down computers and frozen email. Their movies now have been leaked. Internal documents have been exposed to private company memos along with employees' salaries, social security numbers, and health information. Check this out. Fury, the movie I wanted to go see, the World War II drama starring Brad Pitt, has been downloaded now illegally 2.3 million times as of this broadcast this evening. The remake of the musical Annie starring Jamie Foxx, 278,000 downloads. You think that's going to kill the holiday opening for next week? I think so. Hackers took more than 100 terabytes of data. A leak of information so huge that it'll take Sony a year or more to go through it all and to deal with the damage. All of this because of the movie, The Interview. Don't piss off North Korea. Am I doing it right now? Or am I applauding North Korea? I don't know. But my goodness. North Korea doesn't play around. They just don't. According to documents published on this morning, actually, the NSA is working to exploit every cell phone network on Earth. Classified documents provided to The Intercept by former United States government contractor Edward Snowden now show that the NSA has sought to sabotage the encryption standards adopted by mobile devices and networks that operate on or as part of the agency's efforts to collect the world's communications for supposed national security purposes. According to files supplied to the website by Snowden, since at least 2010, the NSA has been engaged in an operation that has involved the U.S. agency routinely eavesdropping on companies and organizations around the globe that are affiliated with the mobile technology industry in an effort to stay on top of encryption methods being used so they could and then be undermined by American spies. Now, we all know my views on Snowden. That has nothing to do with this story, this breaking news. Let me just say this. When you hear something like this, isn't this what you want? Now, hear me out. Hear me out. Stay with me on this. Have you ever watched Homeland 24, CSI, any NCIS, any of those shows, or any movie, any great spy thriller, and you see a terrorist on a cell phone? It's got the drone flying overhead. And somebody spins around in there. Get me his, what's he listening to? Well, guy's tapping on a keyboard. And they tap into a cell phone and they're listening. Did you say Utes? Okay, Sal, don't get me distracted. Don't do that because that's a good quote. When you see something like that happen on a show like that, isn't that what you expect? Isn't that what you expect? What, so now let's review the said scenario for a second. Just listen to me. Just stay with me on this. Okay, so now they got the drone going overhead. The terrorist is on a cell phone, getting ready to do a suicide bomb remote detonation in a crowded cafe in Berlin, staffed with American tourists. Think about this for a second. And then instead of tapping on the keyboard, the guy turns around and goes, we can't do that. We can't. We don't have the technology. We don't know how the encryption works. We don't know what he's using. We can't listen. Oh, boom, bomb goes off. That's not what you want. Now that's where I'm confused. So I need you to, that's where my mind is. When I see this about Snowden, it's one thing to invade privacy. I get that. But don't you want the security of knowing that they can do what they need to do at the drop of a hat? That's my point. Isn't that what you want? Or do you want the exact opposite? Am I making sense? That's all that I'm saying. When I read something like this, I expect any spy agency to be able to get the job done when they need to get it done. Critical moment, critical mass, it's getting ready to go down, and we can't. Why not? Because what? No. All right, that's all that I'm saying. All right. This is Fade to Black. Is everybody ready? Let me see here. It's all lies to the three-letter agencies to get bigger budgets. Yes, okay, could be. It's how much liberty must we give up for the illusion of safety, Jimmy? I get that. When was the last time you got on a plane? That sucks. I get that. No, Jimmy, not at the expense of my freedom and privacy. Again, I'm trying to play out a scenario for you. I'm just playing out a scenario. I'm being devil's advocate here. That's all. I want you to think about that. Now, if you think, here, I'm going to run a test. And I thought about this today. Jump on your cell phone. You wonder if the NSA is listening, or the CIA. Jump on your cell phone, yell NSA, bomb, and CIA, and name an embassy. Say it into your phone 100 times and see what happens. Nothing. Okay? They're not listening to you. They don't care about your grocery shopping. All right? Think about that. Now, hey, I'm all about privacy. I'm all about that. I don't want my privacy invaded. But I just laid out a scenario for you. What if they needed to do this and they couldn't? And they just couldn't. Now we got a problem. So, whose hands do we tie? I don't know. At the invasion of my privacy? No, I don't want that. But what if the chips were going down and then they just couldn't? Think about that for a second. That's all that I'm saying. Jimmy, sadly, there is always a trade-off for cybersecurity. This is from Mario. We need to embrace it. It's the new social issue. That's exactly right. I don't know what the balance is. I don't. I really don't. I don't. All I'm doing is painting a picture for you. I'm not saying it one way or the other. I'm just trying to play both sides. That's it. That's all. I just want you to think. And when I come back, Chase Kloetzke is going to be joining us. This is Fader Night. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Stay with us.
Are you afraid of the dark? Don't move. Don't touch that mouse. You are listening to Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. This is Bespoke Radio for the masses. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Shoot me an email right now to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. You got anything for Chase? Shoot me an email. Also, follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Come hang out in the sandbox. You got any questions for myself or Chase during the show? Hashtag F2BQ is what you want to do. And I'm ready. Let's get this cracking. Chase Kloetzke earned her master trainer, master instructor title while employed with the Department of Defense. Armed with a biomechanic engineer accreditation, she was responsible for designing specialized programs and the supervision for complete success regarding force readiness, unique mission responsibilities, and elite force protection. This includes Homeland Security and private sector security forces. She joined the Mutual UFO Network in 1996 and was selected as the STAR Team Manager and Deputy Director of Investigations through 2011. Chase is an author of 2 popular books, Admissible, The Field Investigator's Manual with Richard Dolan, and the first of its kind, a children's book, Are Aliens Really Real? I dig that. I would like to welcome to the program Chase Kloetzke. Chase, are you with us?
I am, and thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
You fired up?
I am.
Are you ready to go?
I am. I really have one quick question before we get started.
We're already started, but you can ask me a question.
What is a fade or not? I love it. It's all over Twitter. I love it.
Yeah, Fade or Nots, that is the name that they gave. That's our audience, and that's the name that they gave themselves. And it's a huge family and community. I have no idea how big it is. They have their own website. It's called faders.org, and this show's called Fade to Black. And that's how it came in. And so they combined fade to black, faders, astronaut, fadernauts. And that happened. It's been going on for quite a while now. And that's what it is.
Awesome.
Isn't it cool? It is.
It really is.
It's such a humbling experience every single night to watch everybody light it up and hang out here. And yeah, fadernauts is what they've called themselves. And I'm proud to be. They've got their own mission badges. We should post some of this for you tonight. You can see some of it in Twitter, or you can go over to faders.org and or over at my website and see the mission badges that they have, and they run it. A very proud organization, the Fadernauts.
They're awesome. They're all over Twitter. They're tweeting like crazy. What a great audience. Seriously.
I know. It's so cool. And this is you're the guest, but I'll just say this. Like tonight is Fader night. Normally Thursday night is our open lines night. It's called Fader night for the Fadernauts. And everything is geared towards them. We when we started this show, I just wanted to have everybody feel the same as me about life, which is discovery and learning, and not only ufology, but lost civilizations and the paranormal and conspiracies and music and cinema. And if I could just be myself on the air, that I would hopefully find people that thought like I did, and we could all hang out every night. And it just happened. It worked. And trust me on this. Everybody, no matter what, if I, like tonight, Chase, I was talking about the NSA and Snowden, and it's a very controversial subject, and I have my opinions, but the point is, I just want people to think, and I don't want to make people angry, but if I do, then that means they're listening, and I just want people to think, that's all, and we all get together every night and just talk and hang out, and now you're part of it, so welcome.
Thank you so much. I feel very honored.
Stop. The honor's all here. Trust me on that. Let's back up for a second, because you and I have talked at length for a couple of days now. And one of the things, and I'm reading your intro here that I've gone over for about a week, looking at this, you've lived a pretty full life so far. You've seen things, young lady, and how does one? I want to back up for our listeners. I want to back up, and how did you get into everything that you did with the Department of Defense and training, and then obviously use that knowledge and then move into ufology and that research? Tell me about that.
It was just kind of one of those things that you know you're supposed to be doing, or you just find yourself involved in. And we were, I'm married to an active duty service member. He's still active. He's a submarine commander, actually. And, we move all the time. So I had to have a career that there was a position almost everywhere I went. And it just made sense. I ended up in the Department of Defense. Designing programs for special operations was really something that became very important to me, because we want these guys home. Nobody likes war. I wish everybody would stop the nonsense. It's ridiculous. But we don't get to make those decisions, we the little people. And if we're going to send our boys over, I want them ready. And I just, we did everything we can to make sure, especially with a special assignment, if that makes sense.
Right.
We want to make sure these guys that are being inserted into these areas and are asked to operate 72 hours completely unassisted by themselves, hitting the rough terrain and doing things that are almost impossible. It was my job to make sure they were physically, emotionally, and mentally able to complete that mission and get to that extraction point. So, it was a great job. I loved it. But it gave me a skill set that really started me in the field of ufology, understanding that there's a methodology that needed to be followed. There's a training that must be focused on while we're out there. And a lot of it has to do with safety or even team building. How do you build a team of investigators that are high performance individuals that are going to grab that evidence or properly interview that witness, or sometimes just rock and roll and haul ass, Can I say that?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
and your son is a Marine.
And my oldest son is also active duty. My whole family is surrounded by this. Of course, I wanted them to go to college, but I support them in their decisions. And, they had a great dad to look up to. So you kind of can't blame them for following those footsteps. But, I'd rather them be stateside and working on something like Lowe's.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I'm totally with you there. Let me ask, you're in shape, right? You're in shape. You can say yes.
Yes.
Can you kick the crap out of your son?
I don't know, and I'd like to think so, but I'll tell you what. There's only one thing meaner than a Marine, and that's his mama.
That's what I'm talking about, right there.
I like to kick a little door, so you get out there, and and especially in field investigations, when your boots on the ground, got to be a little door kicker every once in a while to get some information. It's not just good enough to go to a witness or an event zone and stay in that area. You got to knock on a few doors and, go to the police department and talk to the sheriffs. And, especially with some of these sightings, if some of these sightings are happening in neighborhoods, chances are they weren't the only ones to see it. So you can't be afraid to get out there. And, I'm kind of have the attitude, the saying, Jimmy, where they say when one door shuts, another opens.
That's
I say,
right.
Screw that, breach it.
Yeah, right on. Yeah, I'm just going to stay here for a minute, then we're going to move on. But I just have to know. So, what about weapons and stuff? Can you disassemble and do stuff blindfolded? Are you like that?
Oh, I'm sorry. Say that again.
Weapons. Are you trained in weapons too, as well?
No, not as much.
Okay.
My job is really, a hypothetical situation would be, say you had a SEAL team that was going into a certain area and, from the insertion point, if it's a vertical insertion, what's the terrain? Is it urban combat? My job was to help get them every skill set they needed from insertion to extraction, or even how do you stay fit on a submarine, a fast attack submarine that's, you've got 120 men living in an area equivalent to a, 1,100 foot house, square foot house. So, how do you stay fit in this kind of environment? The assignments were always, different. I trained the Coast Guard right after 9/11, right before they were transitioned from Department of Justice to Homeland Security, and they developed kind of the Coast Guard SWAT team. Well, of course, if you know anything about the Coast Guard, they're typically more educated than athletic, or, they're not Marines, put it that way.
Right.
And I had to take these guys and turn them into a special op unit. And it was one of the best assignments I ever had. I started with 9/11-08 designator down here in Southeast Georgia and finished with 9/11-13 in New Orleans. So it was a great job.
So your husband's a submarine commander. You're a UFO researcher. Now, he knows what you do.
Yes.
Do you ever drill him? Do you ever ask him if he's seen anything out there?
All the time. All the time.
And does he disclose?
No, never. And it's people, I get this question a lot, and I like the question because people wouldn't understand how I can do this job, with the husband with the security clearance and what he does. And it's just real easy. Our conversations when it comes to our work typically sound like this. You come home and, hey, honey, how was your day? It was great. We had some meetings, had some personnel issues, got stuck on the phone, had lunch with so-and-so. How was yours? And I'm like, oh, it was great. I talked to some witnesses, but there's no detail.
Got you. Well, because I would love, you need to ask him about the Malibu deep underwater base discovery.
Everybody's asking him about that.
Oh, are they? And of course, I already know he's not saying anything, but does he allude to something?
Well, he will help if he can. There's actually Barry Fitzgerald. Most people would recognize him from, Ghost Hunters International. We spoke at a conference together in Minnesota here just past couple months, and he's working on something that has to do with the ocean floor. And of course, he pulled Pete aside and talking on the internet, and Pete pointed him to websites and gave him a couple names of people that could help him. So, that's where it's very helpful to have a husband in that arena. If he can't tell me, he'll definitely point me in the right direction of where I can get the information. Of course, we would never betray our country and deal with, I don't play the whole secret agent game. I'm not going to meet some guy in a garage that says he's got government documents for me. It's, we don't need to do that anymore. We know UFOs are real. We know they're interacting with humanity. All we want to know now is exactly who are they and what do they want. So, these, secret agent things, it makes me laugh, actually.
I would love to talk to him off the record, just in private. But I just said that publicly, like that's really going to do a lot of good. But
I would absolutely put you in contact with him. That absolutely can happen. And if there's anything he could help you with, I'm sure he will.
Now, with all of this experience and training and titles that you do have, how I understand the kick down the door stuff, but you must be very methodical in your research because of that.
Yeah, it's very important. Everything I do as an investigator, I have one goal, and that's admissibility. If our witnesses deserve that, the public deserves that. Our science team, we get all these skeptics that are tearing us to shreds with some of our reports and, information we're putting out to the public. And we don't need that. If we just do our job and collect the data and bring it systematically to the right people, the professionals, blind studies, we have all the tools to do this right. So everything I do out there, I'm focused on admissibility. If it's not going to be admissible in court, I'm wasting the witness's time. They can do better. And I'm wasting my own time because we know we have enough empirical evidence and preponderance of evidence. We need to start making this known. How does the public not know this? So this is really a direction that I focus on when I'm out there. Seriously.
One of the things I want to ask you about really quick, you had a pretty amazing black triangle sighting, and share that with us right now. It's a pretty amazing story.
Yeah, it's one that I still am so aggravated with that case because there are no answers. And as a ufologist, I've been, hunting these things since 94. So you finally see something and you get all this information and you think you're going to get answers. Oh my gosh, if I ever saw something like that, I'd know for sure.
Right.
That's not what happened at all. It was insane. But I had a case in Tennessee. It's 2010, right about April timeframe, April, May. And I had a report from MUFON. I'm a MUFON investigator at the time. And the witness first started reporting these orange orbs, orange balls of light or orange orbs is exactly what he reported. And you call the witness, we start talking, getting more information out. And as they got more comfortable and, you earn that trust with the witness, they start giving you more information. Well, became very clear, and I'm missing a lot of detail here. There's a lot of detail in this case, but just stay with the big stuff. We ended up heading out there pretty quickly before the appointment to go and meet him. So he had called and said that things were already ramping up, and this was typically what happens before the big stuff arrives. So I'm throwing my
wait. Okay, what did he mean by that?
I wasn't really sure. What he said on the phone was, Chase, we've got, these little lights are starting to come out, and the activity that we're seeing is usually this is the type of night where, the big ones will come, the triangles. And that was the first time, Jimmy, he ever said that to me in the 2 weeks, or actually 3 weeks we had been talking at this time. I was stunned. I'm like, triangles? Dude, what?
Right.
So it really was go bag in the car, literally hung up the phone, drove to Memphis. I was in Millington at the time to pick up the other MUFON investigator. And we were gone, driving straight up to his house. Now, this is an extremely rural area. Getting there was a little difficult. We pull up in his driveway, and we get out, and, of course, the handshakes real quick, and he's immediately pulling us to the end of the driveway, and he starts pointing to the sky and asking us to look up. And sure enough, I see these little points of lights, and, I'm kind of smiling to myself, Jimmy. I'm waiting to, highlight the aviation lighting or, show the trajectory of a known, that's obviously a satellite.
Right.
I'm just really focused on this stuff. And, they got my little iPad out looking for constantly, everything is going on. And sure enough, I'm watching these little points of light, little tiny lights gather together, make a formation, actually maneuver. Then they all split up. You see them move very quickly and then stop.
This happens, Chase. This happens right when you get there?
Yes. I mean, we pull up, and within, just a couple minutes, it really was a handshake. How you doing? Oh my gosh, you guys need to see this. They're already coming out. So this is exactly how this evening starts. And it wasn't, and if you got tired of looking at this little group, he pointed out one, over to the other side of the sky, to the right of us. There's another little group over there. I'm excited, Jimmy. Like I said, 1994, this is what I do. This is what I'm looking for. I'm freaking out. I'm
freaking out. I'm right with you. I mean, it's got to be one of those moments, it's what you live for, and then it's actually just going on the second that you pull up. And there it is. You don't have to sit out all night, looking at the sky, waiting for something to happen. It's going right now. It's go time.
Yes. And as a UFO investigator, 99.9% of everything we do is after the fact. Right. We're going to see if there's trace evidence or physical evidence and to collect witness testimony. It's crazy to get there. And because I've been doing it so long and never seeing things like that, especially just getting there, I'm a little stunned. I'm not even going to lie. Like, I'm kind of like, really?
Are you guys taking pictures at this point? Are you running video?
Yes.
Okay,
yes. We came home with almost 700 photos, but this was a good case. Well, about the time, I don't even know it, maybe 5-6 minutes, we're standing here looking at this, and I'm checking my equipment. We start discussing. I'm asking him questions. Is this what you've seen before? How many times? The investigation. He suggests that we go to his cornfield. He lives in this area, and he has cornfield right down the road. We're like, yep, let's go. He said there'd be this huge panoramic view, and you could see more of the sky without the obstructions of the trees and things. So we get in his truck. We drive down there. This little Rhode Island girl has never seen a cornfield that big. I mean, it was huge. I didn't even realize, of course, there'd be that much corn. Where does it all come from? I don't know. But it was the biggest cornfield ever. And it was surrounded with a perimeter of like woods. And there were definitely woods all around this cornfield. Very dark. The sky was amazing because there's no competitive lighting. It was very rural. So we're in this cornfield. I'm getting all my equipment out. I'm still kind of, heart pounding, that really awesome sensation of excitement because those little dots of lights, I've just seen something. It was awesome.
Was it continuing when you got to the cornfield? Were the lights still there?
Yes, but not as much because as the stars started coming out, we couldn't see that activity so much anymore. And it's funny, you're the first one to ever ask that in an interview. When we're driving down there, my first thought was it smart to get in a car or get into his truck? Because what if we're missing something?
Right.
That you're the first one to ever ask me that. So it was something I thought of. We get into the cornfield and, I'm focused on the equipment, getting things, at least pulling my stuff out. I had 4 cameras, different makes and models. Of course, you have your tri-field and, all the usual equipment that everyone has. We get out there and he gets all excited. He goes, oh my gosh, Chase, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I wanted you to see. And he goes, here it comes. And he points towards, a place in the sky. And sure enough, I see this light and it looks like it's moving. Oh my gosh, it looks like it's coming towards us. So it wasn't long after that, 2 more show up and there's 2 more white lights. And at this point, I can see it is clearly coming our way. And these are lower to the ground. These aren't high lights in the sky. This is something very significant. And I knew it. And there's 3 of these lights coming. And I'm just kind of standing there. And of course, I can't take my eyes off it, but I'm reaching down, trying to grab cameras. And it doesn't take long. And it's one of those things, Jimmy, where you're looking and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's all starting to register. The closer it gets, I'm starting to see an outline. These aren't 3 separate lights. This is a friggin' triangle. You clearly can see an outline, and it's huge.
And let me stop you there. What color, let me interrupt you so rudely. What color were the lights?
The lights at this point were white.
White?
They were,
okay.
Yes. We did notice a 4th light, which was red. It was, definitely in the center, but it was more forward. So it wasn't dead center. But, it was just one of those typical textbook triangles. My heart's pounding. I am so excited. I'm trying to keep the composure of a professional investigator, but on the inside, I'm looking at the other investigator and I'm about ready to pop out a happy dance.
Right.
I could not believe this.
I'm popping out a happy dance right now.
Yeah.
How okay, real quick, set the stage for us. How far off the ground and how many feet across was the triangle?
The triangle was, honestly, if you hold your arms out above your head straight and open a magazine, the triangle was bigger than that. Not much, but an open magazine would not have covered that triangle.
Wow.
As far as how high it is, do you know to this day, it is the only piece of information that all 3 of the main witnesses, because there was actually 7 involved in this cornfield, but the 3 of the main witnesses, and that's 2 of the investigators, myself and the other, and also the witness. It's the only thing we did not get correct or agreed upon, even though we were interviewed separately. I'll get to that in a bit. Was the height of this thing. Yeah, I think the other investigator said 30,000 feet. I said, I think we're all guessing. Nobody knew. This thing was huge. And, you've got stars everywhere. It was very difficult to determine, especially, how high it was, especially with the way it moved, Jimmy. It wasn't flying. It wasn't gliding. It was just moving over us.
Wow.
It wasn't floating. I can't even find the word, which is why I feel like this experience made me a better investigator, because now I understand when a witness can't say something. They're like, well, it was kind of like this.
Right,
what do you
right.
mean? It's, yeah.
I have the same, let me stop you there, because I have the same, I've had my own sightings. And whenever I'm talking to somebody about this and they say certain things like, well, I forgot about my camera. I didn't look. I didn't do that. I was caught up in the moment. I get that. I totally get that. I mean, I can't imagine what you were going through. And with my experiences, my own personal ones, I forgot that I had a cell phone camera on me. No, I was caught up in the moment. And when somebody says, there's certain things where, you're just caught up in the moment, I get that. And now when you're talking, like you just said, when you're interviewing somebody else and they're caught up in the moment, you understand that. Not everybody can do all things right in a moment like that.
It is, exactly. And when you see something so profound and significant, and I'm trying to remember to do it all right. I'm grabbing my cameras. I'm trying to get photos as it's coming closer before it even goes over our head. That triangle flew directly over that cornfield, straight over our heads. It was unbelievable. And
where are the pictures?
The cameras, as I pick them up, every single one of them isn't working. I pick up my tri-field, nothing. I'm thinking, I actually said in the cornfield, I'm going to throw this effing camera across the field because I'm so frustrated. Here's my shot. It's right there. And my equipment, I'm ready. I'm picking it up. So my first thought was that it was a battery drain. But as the triangle, we watch it, it's leaving, it goes out of sight. I turn around, everything's back on, which is a huge clue. This is a big clue for my end. It's something I've never forgotten, because it wasn't a battery drain, because now everything's completely back on. So my first thought was, well, did they jam our equipment?
Right.
Oh, well, jamming's kind of us, isn't it?
Right.
So, there's a lot of questions. But anyway, the triangle leaves and I'm freaking out. I'm so excited. I can barely contain it. And, the witness is like, oh my gosh. And, I'm glad you guys were here. And I turn around to focus, because even though I realize all my equipment's back online and, the camera's working, I'm using the flash, checking it out, tri-field's lighting up, I decide to change the batteries anyway. So on the back of a tri-field, there's the little screws before you can get to the battery compartment. And I'm undoing that. And then all of a sudden, I just get this little feeling. And I turn around and I say to everybody, I'm like, hey, does anybody else feel like you're being watched? And I said, and I don't mean from up there. And before anyone could answer, I just remember being pounded with the most intense, horrific fear. Every cell in my body was on fire, terrified. And I just remember turning and running. And when I turned, I saw the other investigator and the witness turn at the exact same time, and we were all running. And we're just hauling, and there was a brief moment where I thought, oh my gosh, it's like one of those thoughts that go through your head that you even wondered how you thought so much in the short period of time. But I couldn't believe how fast I was running. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm hauling.
Right.
And then all of a sudden I hit like something really hard. It felt like a brick wall. I hit so hard. I swear I don't know how I didn't, tumble or kill myself. honestly, it was a hard hit. But the witness had stopped in front of me, and I ran into him. And in his left hand, he was the only one that had a flashlight as we're running, because looking back, I remember following his light, and it was zigzagging as his arm was moving. But he stopped, and I heard him say, "What the F is that?" And he moved his arm out all the way to the left, and that beam of the flashlight landed square in the face of this little being about 3.5 foot tall, just friggin' standing there.
Whoa. Okay, let's back up now. Say that again a little slower.
It was this it was almost 3.5 foot. I think it was a little smaller than that. But here's this little being, literally just standing there. Now you go from this really dark cornfield to a halogen flash, like straight in your face. There was nothing, Jimmy. Nothing.
Wow.
Not a twitch, not a wrinkle in his little mouth, nothing. All I remember, for this big experienced investigator, the thought that went through my head is, oh my God, that's not a cute little Roswell alien. Why that? I was shocked, because that is not what it looked like. And it was gray, but it wasn't, I don't even know why. That's just what hit me. But the other thing I remember noticing, and it shocked me and it bothered me, were his little legs were so twig-like. And I'm talking twig, very, very thin. And of course, we now know it was probably the angle of the flashlight and the shadowing on his legs, but it's just what I was thinking.
Did uniform? Was he naked?
Yeah, I saw no zippers, collars, no indication of any clothing, but there was an appearance of nakedness either. And it was really just 1/1002. That's it, Jimmy. That amount of time, we looked straight into the eyes of this being, and we're gone again. We're already running. You kind of wonder, why am I running? To be honest with you, that's an afterthought. Later, we were thinking. But at this point, we're just running. We haul out. We jump in the truck. The witness hauls out of this cornfield. We get back into his driveway. We're all piling out. His cousins, who had just kind of come down because they knew investigators were coming, came down a little earlier, and were standing on kind of the perimeter, because I didn't want anybody interfering out here. And the more people that were involved, it just wasn't a good idea. You know what I mean?
Let's stop right there. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking with Chase Kloetzke. We are only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Follow us on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Come hang out with the other Fadernauts in the sandbox. Chase is hanging out too. I want to back up. I want to kind of sum this up for a second. It sounds like, but I want to back up a little further, but it sounds like you ran into some kind of force field. That's something protecting that being. And I want to get back to that in a second. But do you think what terrified you in the first place and caused you to run, which I'm surprised that you did because you're a tough girl, is you felt that being looking at you from that direction? And did you run towards it?
It's one of the questions I still have is, was that being responsible for that fear? Because, Jimmy, one thing is very, very clear. We weren't the runners. This witness, when we first got there, pulled out a shotgun. And I guess the look on my face when I kind of looked at him like, you just pulled us two girls out here in a cornfield. I don't know this guy.
Right.
And he looked, he put his hand up. He goes, no, Chase, I'm not a serial killer or anything. He says, we have a problem with coyotes here. And just in case, we're approached by him, this is what it's for. And he lays down this great big, I think it was a 12 gauge right in the back of the truck. Now, this guy never said, if this happens, jump and run.
Right.
Or get in. What he said was he's going to take care of it. This is his backyard. He's not running. This is also an area they don't call 911.
No. No, nobody would respond anyway if they did.
Right. So, and you're right. I'm not a runner. So whatever that fear that hit us, which if I have a knot in my stomach talking about, I hate talking about that stupid fear. But honestly, when that fear hit us, it was put on us. We were supposed to run. It was hive-minded. Nobody said, hey, what was that? Or run, or there was no indication at all. We all did exactly the same thing at the exact same time. And I, to this day, believe that whatever it was put on us. And we get back to that driveway, and nobody says anything for, a few seconds. And, I just start giggling a little. I'm like, what the hell was that? Like, what just happened? And it wasn't until we got in the driveway that I even thought, wow, when did that fear leave? I'm starting to come back to senses. And, of course, we were back in the cornfield within 30 minutes. This wasn't the end. To me, I'm thinking, oh, my gosh, there's footprints. We've got physical evidence. Let's get back there now.
Of course. And how much time has transpired now? It's dark now. Now it's evening, right? It's nighttime. Yes. Okay. Yes. And what time did you pull into the driveway when you saw the first set of lights when it was daylight? What time was that?
It was about 6:45 in the evening.
So what is past now? An hour?
It's about no. It's probably about maybe 90 minutes.
Oh, that's a lot of action for 90 minutes.
Yeah, it was, just even getting to the cornfield and, setting up, there was a lot of things, and I'm skipping some of the details because it's very big case. But
well, all we have is time, my dear. Okay, okay. So let's. We kind of blew by the creature. Did he move?
No, nothing.
He just stared. Did he blink? Did he blink?
No. There wasn't even a twitch in a cheek muscle. There was nothing. So now I have suspect, is this fake? And why did his cousins come down? Was there a way that they could have put a being in there?
Right.
But then you can't fake that triangle. So, about the time I get suspicious with one thing, there's something else. But, that being in the field, and Jimmy, when we stopped, that being was, no more than 6 feet from us. It was
6 feet from you. And what about the cousins, the people that you don't know? Were any of them around the being, the ET?
No, it was actually about 2 weeks after that I realized the only two people that saw the being, everyone else saw the triangle and everything else that happened that night.
Right.
It was only the witness and myself. And of course, we didn't know this for 2 weeks because when we got back, the one thing I knew immediately is we can't talk about this until we're debriefed separately. And I made that announcement. So the other investigator literally walked down and called the state director. So she's on the phone with Eddie Middleton, who's making plans to come immediately. Mm-hmm. He doesn't show up until the next morning. Mm-hmm. But yes, we knew we could not talk about this together. So that's why it took a couple weeks for me to even realize when she turned to run, I saw her turn to run, but she was already past where that being was.
Wow. Okay, so she didn't see the being.
No,
which you didn't find out until later. Okay, now let's stay right here. You go back, just like you said. Now you're looking for trace evidence. Is that what you immediately went to go and do?
Yes, because
footprints, broken whatever. And was the being? I'm asking so many questions. I got a million questions all of a sudden.
That's okay.
Was the being in the cornfield or in the wood? Okay, I got you. Even more creepy, by the way.
Yeah, and it was so shocking. Looking back on seeing this, I'm thinking 6 feet. It was so tiny, and his frail little legs. I mean, I could have reached out and grabbed him with a good lunge. He wasn't far away. I don't know why I say he. I think because I'm a mother of only boys, it's normal. But there was no gender indicated whatsoever. But I say he.
Do you regret not stopping?
I had no choice. I will tell you that I don't know, Jimmy, because I don't know, did that being cause that fear? That fear was fight or flight times 1,000.
Right.
Even when trying to describe it to you, my muscles tense up in my arm right now. Like, it's not because I feel it. It's stressful to think about it. It was painful. It was shocking how every cell of my body felt like I could feel it, and it was terrified. That was something that was put on us. So do I regret not standing there longer with the being? We didn't have a choice. That's the best way to put it. We were not supposed to be there. And whatever was going on, or for whatever reason, we had to leave. Now, of course, all these other things are hitting me because how'd that being get there? How did we miss it when we walked out into the cornfield? All these questions, I'm starting to think. I'm an investigator.
Right.
However, this was right after the big flood that happened in Tennessee, and they called it the 1,000-year flood. It flooded Nashville to Memphis. And the water had receded. So this was about, I think it was 12 days after the flood. So although we weren't like standing in inches of mud, I could retrace every step we made. I couldn't find a single trace of not only a being or any evidence that anything was standing there. I could even see where we hit and stumbled and stopped.
Well, there would have been, if it was placed, let's say it was a mannequin.
Yes.
And it was placed by somebody else, you would have seen footprints.
Absolutely.
And if it was a mannequin, then you would see where it was stuck in the mud, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. Nothing at all.
Nothing. And again, so frustrated. So, literally going home that evening, I'll tell you, and this is exactly the feeling I have today. Bullcrap. Nobody gets everything in one night. What the hell was going on in that cornfield? And I still want answers. Do I believe that our government is capable of this kind of disinformation or these kind of, I don't even know what. I am up for any answer that anybody can help me with, because I don't know if that being did this. Was the being trying to warn us? Was the being trying to make contact because, and this something else stopped it? These are all the questions.
Well, there's another obvious question here. You said something earlier that I thought I was with you on, which is the triangle went over electronic interference on your equipment. That almost says it's us.
Yes.
Okay. But you've seen this little guy.
And that triangle.
So now are those two connected or not? Or is he just with the lights that were earlier and maybe not tied with the triangle? Or is he tied with the triangle? Is the triangle us and he's assisting us with that technology? The whole thing is you've got some problems here.
I do. And it's annoying. And it's why to this day I'm very frustrated with this case. It's and it's mine, which is worse. And to make matters worse, the reason I never mentioned the name of the other investigator, even though it's pretty easy to find because she was MUFON as well, anybody can call the state director and verify this and, call, because this was a big investigation after. But she left ufology. I mean, I think dealing with what happened to us in that cornfield, next thing I know, I'm trying to get a hold of her, and we're told that she, jumped in her car and drove away, left her husband, left her house, left her life, and drove away. And
the one thing that she was out there to go and find the answers to, she found the answers, freaked out, and checked out.
It was that fear is something that I don't think many people can handle. I'm telling you, and I'm not saying that I'm that tough. I'm just saying that I don't know. She just left. I wish I had some answers, but out of respect, because she stepped out and left ufology, I try not to bring her in.
What else happened that night?
There was one more small incident. I'm not convinced it was, typically extraterrestrial. And there was a wood line around the cornfield. And we literally watched this yellow. It was a very yellowish type of round light that was orb, literally kind of travel through the wood line, and then it ascended up above the tree line and then just wobbled off. And again, nobody gets everything in one night. I'm aggravated. I'm done. Ready to be debriefed so I can talk to my witness and, get back into the field and hit this, like you're supposed to hit it and get all this. I spent so much time in this area talking to law enforcement, trying to get other witnesses to come forward. And the last time I was on site, he had a wonderful family, really got along well with, the wife and the kids. And, but she pulled me aside and said, Chase, I really just want to talk to you for a moment. And I kind of knew it was coming. It was starting to become a circus atmosphere. The state director's coming, the chief investigator's coming. Everybody wants to come and see where the triangle, they're starting to bring their friends. She's had enough. The first thing that I was requested upon was to keep all their information confidential.
Right.
They had children in middle school and elementary school, and they didn't want them to grow up as the UFO family or the UFO people. And, very, very sophisticated country people. And really, it's all about their family. And she pulled me aside and she asked me if I was a wife and mother, and she already knew these answers, but I said yes. And she said, then I hope you understand. She thanked me very sincerely and said, you've helped my husband, get through something. He's been watching these things, chasing them, and you've helped him so much. But can you tell us exactly what's happening here?
And?
No.
Right.
And she says, Can you tell me what they want? No, ma'am, I cannot. And she says, can you stop it? No, ma'am, I cannot. And she said, well, then I need all of this to go away, and I don't want to see you for a while.
Wow.
I need a chance to let this all go so I can regroup my family and get my family back together and where they're supposed to be. And as a wife and mother,
I'm with you. Yep.
Yes.
Now, we're going to stay with this. I need to back up. I've got a bunch of questions that have come into Twitter, so I just want to fly through these really quick, and then I want to get back to the original witnesses. We were talking about the elevation, the height of it, and the disagreement there. I want to get to all of that. I want to get to the debriefings, and so we've got a lot to talk about. But number one, this is from Lisa. She said, "Did you draw a picture of the ET? Have you ever done that?"
I'm actually meeting with an FBI forensic artist. Her name is Tracy, and I'm going to do this. I've described it many, many times. I can't really get the image. I've worked with a couple people, can't get it right. So I'm going to go to the big boys and see what they can do.
Did you miss any time? Any missing time in the cornfield? That's from Nora.
Oh, my gosh. Okay, so we're standing there, and, this is before, while the other investigators talking to the state director, and before we go back to the cornfield, and I was standing there, and the witness, very emotional, literally comes up to me, and he, knowing I can't, endorse anything or talk to him about exactly what just happened. But he collapses. He's literally on a knee, and he's like, oh my gosh, Chase, thank you so much for coming out here. You saw it, right? You saw it. And I shook my head and said, yes. And he says, what do they want? Well, the thing I got from that is they. What do you mean they? I didn't see they. I saw it. But he just meant they as in general. And it was, I think at that moment, Jimmy, I thought, oh my gosh, what time is it? So I grabbed my cell phone. I almost don't want to look, because if one more friggin' thing is evident, I'm just going to, drive off myself and just do shots. I don't know. It was insane.
I'm with you.
But yeah, it was just really, really odd that everything in one night. But I looked at my clock, and sure enough, the time was exactly where it should have been. And I was relieved. I mean, like, oh my gosh, thank goodness.
Yeah, look at your clock and it's 6 a.m.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. But Jimmy, it's so hard to tell this story, and this is why I understand how brave it is for people to come out and talk about the craziest stuff that they see and they experience that is not supposed to exist, because it's difficult. I am not prone to fantasy. I am not a liar. My husband has a high security clearance. Me living and being in a certain box is very important to that security clearance.
Mm-hmm.
If I was prone to all this, he wouldn't be as successful as he is. You know what I mean? It's so hard to talk about things you can't prove. I have no evidence. The other witnesses all splattered everywhere. It's like, thanks for leaving me hanging, guys. The only thing I do have is before the other investigator took off and left, we did present this case at a conference in Tennessee. I actually spoke with Travis Walton. And thank goodness, because we are videotaped on the record with her standing there as we're discussing this case. And we're all on the same page. She corroborates everything. So we're on the record with, the stories all being the same, except for the height of that triangle. Everybody's kind of got the same story, even though she didn't see the being. Everything else was on par with the rest of us. But it's so difficult to be that sane, honest person and have to tell people this story.
Did the family ever see beings before? Well, hold on. Did anybody else see the being that night? The cousins, the relatives? Did anybody else, or was it just you?
It was just the two of us.
You and who else?
The witness.
The witness, not the MUFON investigator. She didn't see it.
No.
Okay, no. So somebody else saw. Did the family ever see beings before? Did they describe anything to you?
I suspect they did.
But
he never admitted that.
Right.
As we go on further with the investigation, his children wouldn't sleep upstairs. They wouldn't even go upstairs. They were terrified to go upstairs. So, and some of the activity they were reporting and admitted seemed paranormal to me. So, there's that little bit of, that little crossover, which I do believe all of these are connected, or at least in a realm of dimensional type activity. But, that evening is just nutty, which really, I'm sitting there thinking, my gosh, there's a friggin' triangle. That came from somewhere. It went somewhere. Somebody's got data on this. What's going on? Because, I'm even calling amateur astronomers anywhere in the country that would have been looking in this direction.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they're coming here and entering our atmosphere, these guys aren't government employees. We've got amateur astronomers all over the world that would absolutely report this stuff, and they're not. So are they getting here on a full tank of gas and a Red Bull? Probably not.
Right. What about how long has the family been having these sightings? Was it a period of months, years?
No, this was something that had started a couple months before he even broke down and called somebody and made a report. And of course, he got on the internet, typed in UFO reports, and MUFON came up. That's how MUFON got the case. But he knew nothing of UFOs. He had no history in it at all. One of the reasons I really focused a lot on him was he and his cousins were out at night before I got there. As I kept in contact with him, interviewing, they were chasing it. They were chasing these balls of light down these dark country dirt roads at high speeds.
Right.
I was really worried about this witness, and I had decided to go out and do an on-site investigation versus just a phone call, which I prefer anyway. Not every case constitutes an on-site, but this one was clearly, I was nervous for him. They were becoming obsessed, which is another reason I think his wife was very frustrated.
Sure.
He wasn't getting sleep. He's out all night chasing these things. And then we get out there and we have a great big sighting. I know he had seen triangles before. The only thing he never admitted, but I do suspect, are the beings. Everything else, he had already reported and mentioned before I even got there.
Has the family or you or the other MUFON investigator, did anybody have any marks on their bodies after the incident?
No.
Okay.
And to tell you the truth, I didn't really look anytime soon. It wasn't till the next morning I even got home, and late morning. But I didn't really think of anything like that at the time. I was anxious to get back in that freaking cornfield because I know there's evidence. Not to mention all my evidence laying there, but, that really wasn't my first thought. It really was that evidence. And I just, so how do you go from, the excitement of finally seeing something that is just ridiculous, this giant triangle? Because if we have that capability of propulsion, then nobody ever needs to lift another weapon. This is ridiculous. If we're that sophisticated, then, it's ridiculous.
Do you think you, I'm sure this entered your mind, so I have to ask the question. It sounds like you were almost set up a performance, or I'm not saying illusion or trickery, but I'm saying it sounds like it was done for you. Did you feel like this was a presentation?
Almost. You are absolutely right. And it's why I even looked at the government. I even asked my husband, I said, you're a senior officer. It's got to embarrass somebody in Washington that your wife chases UFOs and calls out NSA every week. It's got to piss somebody off. Mm-hmm. If they can't shut me up, because Jimmy, if all of a sudden you turned around and you're not doing your radio show and somebody shut you up, that's a bigger noise than, you just quitting. You know what I mean?
That's right.
It's huge. They couldn't shut me up. So what if they scared me away? I went that far, Jimmy, and every single scenario or answer I can come up with is ridiculous. Who cares about Chase Kloetzke? Who cares if I'm out there chasing UFO? Why would the government care what I was doing?
Right.
Really?
Right.
I'm not hurting anybody. I'm not betraying the country. I know I'm on at least 3, no-fly list type of situations or watch lists, every good ufologist is. But
now,
to pay that much attention, it just, nothing makes sense.
No, it doesn't. And this is, this is the obvious question, but it has to be asked. And I don't know if you've been asked before, but I'm just going to lay it out there. Your husband is a submarine commander, for Pete's sake. Okay, so now it's one thing to have your husband working at the Ford factory down the street, but he's a submarine commander with an extreme security clearance and nuclear weapons. Now, you have to tell your husband this story. Did he look at you like you were bat nuts crazy? You know what I'm saying?
Yes, and no, he didn't. And it is one question that one other person did ask. You're really good at this, Jimmy. You need to be out in the field, dude. But honestly, no, he never did. His eyes got big and he said, "What?" He goes, "You saw that?" And I'm like, "Yes, it was right friggin' there." However, he was the only one I told, other than, the MUFON investigator, state director. But when it came to my friends or family, it took me months to talk. He's the only family I mentioned it to, but he never did. He never batted an eye. And it's because he knows me. This is, And to his credit, I have to be honest, Jimmy, this man could have asked me to stop doing what I'm doing because he was embarrassed or it was hurting his career, and I would have if he asked, and he never did. He never told me to slow down. He prominently puts my picture, up in his office, with some of my UFO friends and my little insignia. My books are proudly, displayed on stands in his office. He's never been ashamed or shy. He's always treated what I do like he was very, very proud. And, to his credit, he has every reason to ask me not to do this, and he never has.
Back to the craft. This comes from James. He says, when the craft flew overhead, was there a wind noise or zero noise?
There was zero noise, and it was a zero noise that is weird. It is the entire atmosphere around you changes. I didn't feel like, you hear some of the reports where it's electrical, or it was like a silence, kind of like somebody just put a big cone over us and blocked out everything. But it was that confined silence, if that makes sense. Like somebody dropped a big dome over us. And we couldn't hear anything going on outside. It was a very strange silence, but there was nothing. And that triangle never changed direction, never changed altitude, never changed speed. Could it have been a hologram? God, I hope so. Honestly, I hope so. Because that thing was intimidating. It was huge. And if they can affect humans as quickly as that, even if it was coming from that, who knows? Was a triangle, there to do some sort of work? There's just so many questions, Jimmy. This case, to this day, my last thought on it is bullcrap. Nobody gets everything in one night. I hate it. It drives me nuts.
Well, let me ask you this. Now that you've had 4 years to reflect, what does your gut tell you now? Was it us or them?
If I had to call it, because it's pretty, it is an honest answer. I don't know. But if I had to call it, I'm going to say it was us.
And what about the being that you saw?
I know. I'm telling you. I don't know. It behaved very mannequin or robot is, very mechanical, as in there was nothing. But it was such a short moment. It was a second. I call it, the 1 second that changed my life, because it really was 1/1002. That's it. We're looking at it and we're gone. Running like little twits, through a cornfield that obviously, looking back, had to have been a comical exit. Everybody running, jumping into a truck.
Mm-hmm. I would have been right with you, Chase. I would have been right with you. I would have been in front of you. So don't.
But I wasn't afraid of that being. So, I don't want people to get the impression we ran from the being. We weren't supposed to be there. We were already running. We were not supposed to maybe even see it.
You ran past the being. That's a little bit different, right? You ran past it. You ran towards it and past it. Wow, that's crazy. It seems like she was just watching, and there could have been more, and you didn't see them. You just happened to run past the one. And I meant to ask you this earlier. Was the being trying to not be seen, or was it trying to be seen? In other words, was it hiding, or was it?
No, it obviously didn't care if we saw it. This is a huge cornfield. When we first started running, we were in the middle of that cornfield, and it's like 100-acre cornfield. It was humongous, and it was not even close to the perimeter, where it could have easily been behind a tree. Easily. I mean, those woods were thick.
Now, you also said cone of silence. I keep interrupting you, and I apologize for that. You said cone of silence. Crickets, bugs, animals, everything else go dead silent too as well?
Yes, and the reason that was so noticeable is, remember, it's farmland. You heard cows in the background when we first got there. Once it got dark, not so much, but there was cicadas. I mean, it's Tennessee. It's Tennessee woods. It's April. It's spring. The only reason we could be in the cornfield in the first place is, the corn was only 4 or 5 inches high, so it's real pliable. We weren't going to hurt the crop. Or I'm sure this man wouldn't have let us near. That's how they make their money.
Oh, that changes things. Okay, so, wow, that changes things. So the being is standing in the cornfield, but the corn isn't tall.
Oh, yes. I'm sorry.
Now you're painting a whole nother picture. Now this is insane. Okay, now this just went from nuts, crazy experience to just over the top adrenaline rush. This guy is standing at knee high. He's 3.5 feet tall. So he's standing in knee high corn when you ran past him. So when I asked you if he was hiding, I was picturing him, next to a couple of corn stalks.
No, there was no hiding. Even the corn probably was, a little bit past his ankle. But, when it's coming out, I don't know anything about farming or whatever, so the audience might be able to help me with that. But, the rows kind of seem far away when the corn is so tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought they were closer than that, but, I don't know. I have to tell you that this little Rhode Island girl, I was just like, wow, you own all this is all your corn? And he kind of looked at me. He's like, yeah, I got 3 more fields like it. I'm thinking, who does that? Like, how do you even pick the corn? Well, of course, it's a machine, but, I'm picturing like, man, you wouldn't, no way I get out here and pick all the corn. And it went on for as long as the eye could see. It was crazy. But he was right. It was a huge panoramic view. I'm often asked if I could go back and do it over again, would I do anything different? Yeah, I probably wouldn't be there. And that is because it helped no one. Hopefully something will happen, Jimmy, in 5 years, and then all of a sudden all of this makes sense. But for now, I am left with the frustration. I'm left with the memory of the most debilitating fear I have ever felt. I never feel that again. But I feel it building. You know what I mean? And it never even gets close to that level. But it's almost like a little reminder every once in a while, like, we can get you. And I don't even know if that's true. That's probably all my head. But, there was nothing good that came out of that evening.
You were
nothing.
Defenseless, first off. You have zero control over a situation. You like to think with all your training, everything that you do, and I was talking about this last night on the show, Chase. The one thing about the military, I'm an Army brat, and the one thing that when you grow up in a military family, it's all about training. That's all you do. You wake up every day and you train. So when something happens, you know what to do. And here you are, you design training programs. And you're set up with something that you thought you were prepared for. You were totally not prepared. And there was nothing you could do.
No, and that was a big thing. Had we, saw a being walk in there, I mean, you prepare yourself as a ufologist. When you're out in the field, we've run into other things. I do consider myself a ufologist first and foremost, but, I'm in, Daniel Boone National Forest hunting Bigfoot. I've been in the swamps of Louisiana chasing the Honey Island swamp monster. I've been in claves looking for a Devada. If you don't know what it is, I'm going to go look. So, you train. When you're the one looking for these, you walk in with a plan. So, it's something where as an investigator, I have a plan of action. I know what will happen. I've planned out for, rough terrain and protection, especially safety if you've got team members with you. So to absolutely have an entire chaos or everybody just turning and running at the same time, the best way I can just tell you is we were supposed to. We were controlled. We were meant to do that. It was hive-minded, and I want nothing to do with any of that crap ever again. They can just keep it. I will be dumb. I'd rather not see it.
Oh, stop. You would do it all again if you could. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We're talking with Chase Kloetzke. Follow us on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio. It's what you want to do. Hashtag DMRadioNet. We're all hanging out in the sandbox tonight. I am up to already, Chase, 1,908 tweets tonight because of you.
I love
1,908 already. Come hang out with us in the sandbox tonight. Hashtag DMRadioNet. You can also email throughout the show, Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Okay, now I promised I wanted to get back to the debrief. Now, you had some discrepancies, and you're always going to have that with witnesses. So how large was the craft? What did everybody say, and what was your final determination?
My final determination was literally that's what I kind of stuck with because, again, I was held. I mean, they grilled me pretty quickly. Well, they'd ask, well, can you tell me in feet or you can, and I kept saying, if you put your hands up, because that's, how we're trained as UFO investigators, you put your hand out with the size of a golf ball, and, watermelon, whatever. But I kept saying that, and they kept trying to get me to put a number on it, and I just wouldn't because I would be guessing.
Okay, so what did you tell them, though?
I told them that if they put their hands out and open a magazine, that magazine would have not the object was much bigger than the magazine, where the tips would have been, it wouldn't have even covered the inside.
So from 10,000 feet, if it's that big, this thing is what, miles across?
That's exactly it, is I was guessing. They try to hold, they try to tell you, was it this many feet? Well, this is how high this would be, Chase. And they give you some sort of, it's the only thing the three of us disagreed on. And truthfully, between me and you, I think they pushed us into putting a number on it. To tell you, and I've always been very honest, even when we presented, hey guys, I guessed. I believe it's a close guess from what I personally remember. But the other witness that said it was 30,000 feet said the same thing. In her guesstimation, in hers, she feels like she was close. But she also, when you were using more of a visual analogy of the size, she didn't use the magazine, but we were really close. Now, to put numbers on all this, it's the one thing we just couldn't do. One of the things I did after was, buy the piece of equipment that kind of let you know.
Did it block out the stars when it went by?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Block out like the moonlight? Were you in a shadow when this thing went over?
I wouldn't say that dark because, it was very, very clear evening. I don't remember it being that dark. It was a dark cornfield anyway. I just really remember as it was going over, clearly seeing an outline. I couldn't see it clear enough to tell you if it was dark gray, black. I could tell you it was dark. There were 3 lights.
On each corner?
Yes, with a red one in the middle, but it wasn't directly in the middle of the craft. It was further up towards the front point, right. And there were 2 points in the back.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
It was huge. It wasn't big. It was humongo.
It was very big. And it was, when I talk about us having that kind of technology, other than an aircraft carrier, I don't know anything else that we're building.
That's exactly what came to mind. You're the wife of a Navy captain, and you know boats. I mean, was this did it remind you of something as immense as like an aircraft carrier flying through the sky? I mean, which is huge. Was it like that? I mean, did it overwhelm you in that?
No, it definitely wasn't that big. At least my impression of it, or my view of it. It was much bigger than an airplane. It's certainly not as big as an aircraft carrier. It's really hard to determine. I can't even think of anything that would be close.
Well, see, and that's the frightening part, Chase, is that you can't even. It was so big, and so you couldn't really determine altitude. It was so overwhelming that it blocked out the stars, but it was too. You're not saying small. That's not what you're saying here. You're saying that it's just huge, and it was too big to determine a size. Frightening. But you would do it again. You would.
I say I wouldn't. I'd say there was nothing good that came out of that evening. The frustration of, no evidence. The pictures. We've got tons of lights in the sky. Whoopee! Like they're all over the friggin' internet.
Right.
We've got lights in the sky. That's it. And we have corroborating evidence. You have to know what evidence is. Obviously, the testimonies that were taken by the state director and the chief investigator of Tennessee at the time, corroborate and would be admissible. And that is physical evidence. Witness testimony can be considered if it's corroborated, documented properly. So, but it's so hard because you can't explain what's going on out there. And
you know what? You know what? Listening to you right now, you should do a radio show.
I am doing a radio show.
You should do a radio
with
show.
one of the best out here.
You should do a radio show. Okay, I want to change gears a little bit. I could sit and talk about this experience all night, and I know that we're leaving so much on the table with that. But I've got so many other areas I want to get into with you now. But getting off of this, have you had another sighting? Obviously, probably not as extraordinary like this, but have you had another sighting?
Not a sighting as such. I see a lot of things I can't explain. That evening, because that triangle was right there. It flew right over our head. We know what we saw. There's just no doubt. That being was in that effing field. It's like there is no doubt. I know what I saw. But there's plenty of things, like even that orb later, I didn't really focus on that because there was so much emphasis on everything else. But, I see a lot of things I can't explain. Are they extraterrestrial? I'm not one of those investigators that's because I can't prove, that a lighthouse, light could travel that far, that it's extraterrestrial. So I have seen other things that I suspect were, but that one, there was just no question. There have been other incidents. It was last year, Chris Bledsoe, who is a UFO experiencer, pretty well known in the community, and I were working a case, and the only reason I brought him is the event happened so closely to him, and we were out, and there was like 9 of us. We get lost in this stupid, tiny little patch of woods, and we're all walking, and it's the kind of the section of woods that the electric company has to plant or keep between a mega station and a neighborhood. Do you know that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, it soaks up the high EMF is why the trees are planted there. And, they kind of clear this big patch in the middle of a wooded area, and that's where they put their power lines. Well, we're trying to get from this neighborhood to the power lines because I want to measure how high the EMF coming off them are and where it stops and when it diminishes. So we're going to go up, we're going to get a good base reading from right under there and then walk our ways back so I can rule this out as part of an incident.
Right.
So we're walking in this little patch of woods and we come up to this little ditch and I'm kind of frustrated because I'm thinking, shouldn't we be through these woods already?
Right.
So we go through this ditch and we're walking, and I just remember we've already been through these woods. After this ditch, that friggin' outline that we could see the field is right after this. So we even get a compass out, which, is 50-50 because I don't know where the EMF stops. And
Sure.
So, but we're following a northwest trajectory. Now, we've got military members on this team. It's just insane. And all of a sudden, we come back up to this ditch again, and we're all stunned. There's no way we could have walked a circle. This is a tiny little patch of woods. What are we doing back at this? Anyway, there was a little confusion, and, there's people feeling a little nauseous, blah, blah, blah. Well, we cross the ditch a second time, and sure enough, we get out. I'm like, it's right there. You could see the edge of the tree line. So we get out of the woods. We do our investigation. 3 days later, the guy that's reviewing evidence calls me, says, hey, Chase, the helmet cams everybody was wearing? Yep. He goes, 3 of them are missing 8 minutes. Oh, my God.
What?
I know. So I blame Chris Bledsoe.
You blame Chris Bledsoe?
I sure do, and he knows it. I just laugh. But, I called him, and, and then, of course, you start thinking. We all knew something was off. We all knew something was happening, but nobody ever thought that. So that's kind of the latest little thing that's, I guess, kind of significant. But
now, the 8 minutes on the helmet cams, are they all at the same exact point?
As far as I know.
That's interesting.
Yeah, all 3 helmet cams, and we know to document everything. I don't write down witness testimonies. I videotape them because then nobody can twist a word. It's perfect when you videotape. So, GoPros are awesome. We've got GoPros everywhere. We got them on our cars. I got them on my drone. I got them on my chest, on my head. Shoots. After that cornfield incident, I'm going to have something on me proving something.
That's right. Oh, Brian Forrester told me to tell you hi, by the way, a few minutes ago. So.
Oh, he did?
Yeah, I just got that out of the way. He said, I loves me some Chase. That's what he said.
Oh, he did.
So there you go. And actually, this is a good point. And I wanted to take some phone calls tonight. I don't want to run out of time. You don't mind, do you? Would you like to take some phone calls?
I love talking to people and, tell them to bring their questions because, oh, my gosh.
Okay, we're going to do that, too, as well. I've ignored everybody that called in. Look, I didn't say open lines, so I'm not going to say I'm sorry. When I say open lines, that's when you call.
Okay, they love you, though. That's so awesome.
No, they love you. All right, back to Brian Forrester and your trip to Peru. And the skulls. Tell us about that. I've seen it already, but I want your side of it. And I've already had Brian on the show, and I had L.A., I had Rick, and I had Stephen Mailer on too as well. So I had the whole crew on the show, everybody but you. So how was that trip?
I know. How come I'm last? What's up with that, mister?
Save the best for last.
Oh, thank you.
Come on. That was easy.
Honestly. Well, Brian's known, he's kind of the foreperson on this anyway. He's been doing this research on those skulls for many, many years. But I was actually invited by L.A. Marzulli to join the team, but I was the UFO investigator. I had absolutely no knowledge of these skulls. I had not been doing research on them or megalithic structures in Pumapuku. I literally was asked to join from LA as a UFO investigator and to come down and work off that angle as we go through Peru and Bolivia. And of course, I was really excited. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm going to get to work with Brian Forrester and Richard Shaw. And, so it was a big deal for me. I was very excited. And, especially seeing the skulls and being able to do some of the things we did. Very, very loyal to L.A. Marzulli. However, I had decided to really look into his theory because, his theory is kind of the UFOs are the deception that is stated in the Bible in biblical prophecy.
That's right.
Of the Antichrist. This is not a good thing. It's one of the parts of the UFO extraterrestrial theories I've kind of been staying away from. Well, that's kind of really short-sighting myself because it's like thinking you have all the you have all the knowledge of what's going on in the world and you watch Fox News, right?
That's right.
So I decided, this guy is awesome. LA is just an amazing, amazing person who's done a lot of work on the Nephilim, the giants. And, so he was absolutely credible and somebody that I could, learn from and work with and understand exactly what he was saying, which of course, led into an introduction to one of the best guys out there, which is Richard Shaw. I'm fiercely loyal to these two. And I get to go down and, work with Brian and meet his beautiful wife, Irene. It was just a really good time. But the skulls are crazy. They're something when you first look at them. We went to a museum first. So my first glance at them was, through glass. And they're shocking. They're absolutely shocking. And they're elongated in different shapes. Some of them are more in the back. Some of them are cone shaped. It's called dolichocephalic. I could go with all these fancy terms, but it's annoying. But the different shapes, and some of them are really large. And so we were excited. We were given a lot of favor at the museum. We were brought into the back room. We were the first people other than the archaeology staff to see a mummy they had just, revealed and took possession of. But our job really started when we entered Paracas, and this was Senior Juan's museum, the Paracas Museum, History Museum. And Senior Juan is an amazing man. He's a humble man that cares really about the heritage, and he's very interested about where his people came from and what happened to them.
And he knows a lot about a lot.
He sure does.
Yeah, he's who Brian goes to for knowledge, and that's scary. Just that statement.
It's funny.
It's true. You know. So, by the way, say you just said Puma Punku. Say Gobekli Tepe for me.
Gobekli Tepe?
Okay, there you go. Let's move on, everybody. It's a joke. We have a drinking game that we do here. Every time somebody says Gobekli Tepe, everybody in Twitter has to drink. So you just made 2,000 people drink. So there you go.
It was a good shot. Where's my shot? I need a shot.
We'll do that next time. I promise. Don't you worry. Now, and you went to Puma Punku on that trip?
Oh yes, it was a big investigation, and there were several things that LA had. Of course, we're down there, really filming and investigating for Watchers 8. So as we're traveling through Peru, there were several other things we're looking into. The Inca stones, we were looking into megalithic structures, adobe construction, new adobe versus ancient adobe. Even Lima has over 1,000 pyramids. So these pyramids are everywhere. We had a chance to go to Chongos, which is a necropolis. It's a desert-like area, just sandy, and it had a little step pyramid, kind of in the middle of this area, and it's completely littered with human remains everywhere.
It's one of the most. I talked to everybody about that. That part of Watchers 8. It's what's the word I want to use? It's got to be totally emotional as a human being to walk, and you're literally tripping over human remains. Bones are everywhere to the horizon.
Yeah, and human skulls and, just vertebrae. I mean, the simplest little things. And we spent days in these types of areas, not just at Chongos. However, it was funny because going there, the mayor, the Pisco mayor, I believe it was, wanted to meet us. And we were brought to that area under armed guard. Peru and Bolivia was not without a few little scary moments, but it was just an amazing trip. And it really was the Paracas Museum that offered the biggest part of our investigation. So when we got there, I guess Brian had wanted Aaron Judkins, it was Dr. Aaron Judkins, to, for the first time, scientifically measure some of these skulls. And he picked out 4. And we had that task to do. But there was a baby. There was an infant, a little mummy head. It was elongated, you could tell by the wrapping, and it had never been unwrapped. So we were there to do that. My job was to take the forensic and DNA samples without hurting the skull, because you could collect DNA. We're not, taking teeth and, chopping bones apart,
Right.
Literally taking forensic samples as we unwrap for the first time this infant elongated skull that dates back almost 2,000 years.
And you handled the skull yourself?
Oh, yes, we were. I sat. It was actually Joe Taylor, Aaron Judkins, and myself that unwrapped it. There was 3 of us back there on the table. And as we got closer, the guys would come in. But we're trying to keep a controlled area for contamination because this is our best shot ever to this mummy we unwrapped. There's no contamination. So for us to get these samples, there was no better time. No one had touched it. There's no, cross-contamination. No, you're not going to find something from, Colombia on this skull from a guy's sweater that he brought with him because nobody has touched the inside of the skull. It was perfect opportunity.
Wow.
And we took advantage of it. It was great. as they unwrap the skull, of course, I go out and I get Brian and all those. They were sitting on the front porch of the museum, and they come in and, we're documenting every step of this. And, every precaution was taken. There was so much, sincerity and professionalism, knowing that this was a human skull
right.
And, so there was really, it was a big, profound moment. And, all of a sudden we unwrap. I'm looking at it right now. I have a cast of this little skull right in front of me. And, you just fall in love with it. It's this tiny little elongated skull.
Let's stop right there. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking with Chase Kloetzke. We're talking about her trip to Peru with L.A. Marzulli and Rick Shaw and Aaron Judkins and Brian Forrester, the A-list of researchers, I might add. And with the DNA evidence, what came of that?
Well, I had nothing to do. This team had nothing to do with the DNA evidence that Brian's talking about now. He had submitted that, or somehow that was submitted a couple years before we took these samples. I took almost 100 forensic samples that were left with Senior Juan with a complete chain of custody. And I'm talking, these samples were professionally, my forensic kit would make a sheriff's department jealous. So they're all properly packaged in industry purchased products. In other words, the evidence tape was there. Everything was documented. Everything was done right. And, we left the package in a secured place with Senior Juan. So that worked out. And until we realized we're not going to be able to send these to the United States. Like, we can't do any more work on this DNA without the Peruvian Ministry of Culture. So as far as I know, I haven't heard that any of my samples have been tested.
Right. Everything is still sealed and waiting for approval.
Yes. And in fact, I'm going to be very disappointed, but the last I heard is there was a Peruvian archaeologist named Felipe who was brought in because even though we had an archaeologist with us, a highly credentialed archaeologist, he's a PhD.
Right.
Judkins. And, this is Peruvian ancestry. So, of course, they need to be involved. So, Felipe, last I heard, he's got the samples. So there's a part of me that thinks that's awesome if they use my samples. Unfortunately, when it comes to admissibility, Jimmy, if the chain of custody is broken or we can't document how it was transported and stored, or even the seals, I mean, it's useless right now. I'm devastated about that. So I kind of hope it's not true. I hope it's still sitting with Senior Juan. But these are things that we have to think about. Ancient DNA is difficult.
It is, and I have to ask you this: as you looked and you talked to LA and you talked to Rick and all the research that they've done on this, including Brian, when you look at these skulls and you handle them, what's the feeling that you get? What's your gut tell you? Are you thinking ET interference with our DNA? Do you think? How do you feel? What'd you come away with?
I didn't. I felt mostly cradle deformation or cradle boarding because there's a few anomalies with these. When it came to them being giant, they're not. I mean, they're all, it could be a bigger man's skull, and there are some that are clearly much bigger than most, but without that scientific data to say that they're not normal, they're larger than normal. I need to see that data. Someone can't tell me they are. You can't tell me they're 25 to 60% larger. I need to see the data.
Right.
Because like the public or the scientific community, we kind of would like to see some facts.
Well, and not only that, you're a mom. You've given birth. Do you think you could give birth to an elongated skull?
Well, looking at this little infant, which is so tiny, this little skull, I wish you could see it, Jimmy. It's all over the internet. But,
I've seen the video, yes.
Yeah, to even hold it, and it was so tiny. And, yeah, you could easily give birth to this.
Okay.
You know.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. But I don't know. There's many reasons. LA has been tenacious, and he's intrepid as an investigator. And thank freaking goodness that he's asking the questions. And every lead sometimes will lead you to a brick wall or a closed door or no answers, or it's just not going anywhere. Some leads will give you 5 more. So following some of the leads, we were looking for the 2 little holes in the head. Well, when we come back as an investigator, especially in the field, we're gathering data. So that's what I did in Peru. I listened to all the UFO reports. They were amazing, by the way. Peruvian people are so open and wonderful. But, I'm taking data. I'm writing notes. I'm collecting data. Then we get home, and I'm calling osteologists. I'm calling, people that do actually work with bones every day. Mm-hmm. Osteologists, surgeons, all these, even forensic pathologists. I'm talking to anybody. We're talking to, I'm researching thesis and doctorate research. The information on the skulls aren't so easy to find because most of them have been medically examined. So they're under like medical titles and protocols. They're not saying elongated skulls from Peru or Nephilim,
Right,
so,
right.
But there is so much research, and I'm finding tons of this everywhere, that these skulls have been examined. And there are 340 examples of them in the, Royal College of Surgeons. What?
Right. I've read that too. Yes.
Yeah, there's 6 of them. Actually, there's 6 on display, 3 in the back room in Oklahoma City at the Osteology Museum. Human, legally purchased by a museum, Paracas and Peruvian elongated skulls. So what do we do? I called Dick and Marilyn Carlson, who live in Oklahoma City and really great researchers of Oklahoma UFO Paranormal Group. But, they set up a whole meeting, and they're pulling their skulls out of the cases and letting us to look and compare. And, but it was shocking how much of these skulls have been out and researched. So we know a lot. Once we got home, some of the things that we thought were anomalous at first, proved not to be. Scientifically and medically determined, that's nothing to worry about. It's not anomalous. But what is anomalous about the skulls are definitely the Inca bones, which we know only happen in certain environments, but they're also found in India. And the size out of the 4 skulls that we were asked to measure, Dr. Aaron, all of them came within human range, every one of them. And they were the 4 most anomalous out of the case at Senior Juan's. We touched all of the skulls, by the way. Mm-hmm. But, it doesn't mean they're not what we say.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And as far as the missing sagittal suture, as long as bones obliterate and can grow together and no evidence, bones are constantly changing, moving, and growing every day. They're not concrete. What we have is not what we're going to have forever. They're constantly growing, healing, moving. So the fact that they obliterate almost takes that missing suture. What we need is an inventory, Jimmy, of these skulls that all have a missing sagittal suture, that all have the formine in the back of the heads, that all have, a larger appearance. In other words, we need a population. Yes, this skull looks bigger, but you're showing me a 40-year-old man and a 20-year-old female.
Right.
So until we can inventory some of this, but they're doing great work down there.
Well,
LA,
one thing I've suggested this both to LA and Rick and to Brian. I understand the boarding and the possibility of that's how it happened, but it's the ones without the sutures.
Yeah,
that's what freaks me out. Yeah, how is that possible?
Well, because bones obliterate, and when the Osteology Museum can show us not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, many skulls without a sagittal suture that are very normal human looking, there's a case for the skeptics. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So it's not our strongest lead. However, it could be, because there are different kind of tests that would give it more of an x-ray. We could see through the bone, but you can't get it done in Peru. But they're doing everything right. We're continuing with, I shouldn't say we, they are continuing with the DNA research, because that's where the answers are going to be. Done. All these other things that everybody wants to flip and throw back in your face, like, well, hey, here's a human skull that only has, one parietal plate, and the sagittal suture's gone, and the occipital is, high. Okay, you know what I mean? But you can't mess with the DNA. So I believe that's where the answers are going to be. And ancient DNA is becoming more and more affordable as it goes, So it really is getting the Ministry of Culture of Peru to think it's okay for LA and them to do this here in the United States. And I made some friends while I was, in Paracas area, most notably the little guy that ran the store. Every time I walked in, he ran the store across the museum. It's like, oh, Bella, he was so cute. I loved him so much. But he was like a little teenager. He was so cute. But we talk, and, he'll tell you the problem that, some of the Peruvians have, and maybe the scientific community. He says, Chase, imagine a bunch of us coming up from South America and digging up some Indians in Texas.
That's right.
He says, yeah.
He hit the nail on the head right there. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. We are talking with Chase Kloetzke. Chase, let's open up the phone lines. Let's do this. 323-825-5045. It is Fader night, so let's get some of the Fader knots in here. 323-825-5045. You can also Skype in Fade to Black 14, the number 14. Okay, couple of things for me. These are questions for me. You went to Pumapunku.
Yes.
What was that like? I mean, there's
absolutely stunning. Like, you're pinching yourself really to walk up and say, I've been looking at these places on TV for years, and I'm standing in the middle of it. But I have to tell you, Jimmy, have you ever seen the movie Spinal Tap? You're cool. I know you have.
I own it. I've worn it out. I've got 10 copies.
Okay, so they're lowering Stonehenge down for the first time, and it's this little thing, right? I had such a Spinal Tap moment because I'm walking up, and all of a sudden I spot one of the most recognizable things in Pumapunku, and that is the H block.
Right.
They're like 3 foot tall. I didn't know that. I thought they were these huge, big blocks. They're just these teeny. I felt like such a Spinal Tap moment. But that was the only thing. Everything else is just amazing. And it's right there in front of your face. And then I like Tiahuanaco better. Like Tiahuanaco was, to me, because of the Gate of the Sun and Viracocha and, all his little winged creatures, is that his court? Is that his children? Why do they have wings?
And you can hit it with a rock from Pumapunku anyway. It's right there.
Yes. And why is Viracocha over here, depicted with serpents and wings? And wait a minute, here he is. He's got a beard. Where have we seen that before? Samaria, which we had just got done seeing the big bowl they found right outside of Lake Titicaca and Tiahuanaco area. The
bowl with the Sumerian text.
And I kept finding all these little connections and, just amazing.
Now, when you were at Pumapunku, and you're looking at the H blocks and some of the other stuff there, I got to ask you, was it carved with chicken bones?
No. Oh my gosh. It's something that is so, once you see it on TV, it makes sense. You know what I mean? You're already kind of convinced. You see these in person, there is no friggin' way. No friggin' way. This was somehow a working, advanced civilization. It was their complex in one way or another that had, mechanics, machinery. This was a highly intelligent people.
Yeah, no chicken bones. No, there was something. Let's take our first call. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? And say hi to Chase Kloetzke.
Hi, Chase. This is Mark Dunbar from Florence, Oregon.
Hi, Mark.
Hi. You already answered my suture skull question, because that's always been a big mystery to me, why some skulls would have the suture going from almost a single line from ear to ear instead of the three that, a baby would have.
Right.
But I also wanted to ask you, do you think that alien DNA could be hidden in plain sight in so-called junk DNA?
Absolutely. And this is the, question that I've been posing to a lot of people. Exactly what you just said, Mark, is, if we have alien DNA, then it's going to be human to us. It's going to be human DNA. How do we only use such a small percentage of DNA, and not like 97% of our DNA is junk? That doesn't even make sense. There is nothing junk about our body. Even our cells have a purpose. So I agree.
Yes,
I think you mean for uploading, even like in the future, that this is why maybe some people, believe a higher vibration and energy would actually activate the next genome or a next step up.
Thank you. I pretty much agree with that. I just wondered what you thought, because you research this so heavily. Next question is, do you believe that there's an organization like MAGIC in the government that oversees our UFO, alien, lack of disclosure?
I absolutely do.
Do you believe that the NSA would be subservient to this group of people?
I believe that it's such a small group, which is why they've been able to keep that secret and an identity. I do believe that they've gone so black. It's kind of like Star Wars. You've got Reagan talking about Star Wars program. We all know that, money was appropriated. This is all great visible. And all of a sudden you didn't hear about it again. Well, did it go away? Well, friggin' Israel just shot a laser and took a missile out. No, it didn't go anywhere. It went black. And, so there's no oversight. I do believe that the government keeps secrets about UFOs. The president doesn't know. Why would you tell him? He's a temporary employee. He would never have a need to know this information unless they park themselves over, New York City. But yes, I do believe. And these people almost don't answer to anyone. Why would they?
And then one more quick question for you, Chase. Paul Hellyer, the Canadian defense minister, is retired.
Yes.
Came out in the disclosure, and he said that we're in contact with several groups of extraterrestrials. And based on what you saw, did you recognize that alien as belonging to one of those particular groups that he described, or a group that you would be familiar with?
Fantastic question. Fantastic question. Thank you, Mark.
Yes, absolutely. It was definitely in the grays. When I said it didn't look like the cute little Roswell alien, what I saw was definitely what we would classify as a gray. The eyes weren't those great big black almond shape that kind of wrap around. They were more, they weren't human sized. They were bigger than human, but they looked more human, but they were jet black. I'm really coming up with a composite here soon, guys. I've been, really trying to get it. I just can't get it right. What I tell them is not translating on paper, but yeah, definitely a gray, Mark. And I do believe Hellyer, and it's why the citizens' hearing of disclosure, I believe, was a hallmark. It's a watermark. It was the first thing that's happened to us in ufology in a long time that nailed it. And because now we have Paul Hellyer on the record, we have, the most amazing witnesses completely on the record. And because of what Paul says, and the guys that came from Brazil and, other military, high-ranking military members, we trust our nation and world secrets with these men. And all of a sudden they're crazy because they see a UFO, right?
Right. Hey, Mark, any more questions?
No, that I have some for you on another Fader night, but they'll be a lot more fun than these questions. And thank you so much, Chase.
Thanks, Mark, so much. I'm going to be a fader. I want to be a fader knot. I want a T-shirt. I want a fader knot. I'm a fader knot T-shirt.
You are a fader knot. I'm just going to say this right now to Twitter. Is Chase officially a fader knot, everybody? And
Kill it, guys. Hook me up.
and everybody, and I want you to tag Chase in all of your answers so she can see this a little bit later. I wanted to ask you, what was it like? And again, this is for me. I'm being a little selfish here. What was it like working with Dolan on Admission?
Admissible. Dolan.
Or Admissible, I'm sorry.
That's
Admission,
okay.
Same thing.
It is. Richard Dolan, I call him Big D. I am very fond of him. We're close. Working with him is one of my favorite things to do. And there are times I wanted to pop him in the head because he's a perfectionist. And
right.
Thank goodness for that. The book was written, that all the content was mine, but I'm not an author. And oh my gosh, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I don't want to be an author. I handed Richard this big pile. Well, actually, Nick Redfern was my editor. So Nick Redfern was the first one that kind of cleaned some things up. But it literally was, I handed all this. This is how, to investigate, case management, all the things that you need for professional applications to get admissibility out of your field investigations. This is how you do it, guys. This is what I want to say. And they put it together. I love working with Richard. I'm very fond of him. He is to me, he's the biggest guy we have in ufology. He's contributed so much, and he's the nicest, most approachable man ever. Everybody loves him when you meet him. Everyone loves him.
Yeah, he's a pretty cool guy. I mean, he's pretty cool. There's one, he's been on the show a few times. And with Richard, there's the Richard that is all official when he's speaking, and he's black and white, and I get that. And then there's the Dolan that isn't on camera, that isn't perform, and that guy is a cool guy.
I love that guy too.
Well, both guys are cool, but you know what I'm saying.
I do, and you're absolutely right. And we need that. It's kind of what I was saying when I'm on that field investigation. I'm wanting to happy dance now. If it was me and the fader knots out there, we'd be happy dancing. Oh my gosh, did you see that triangle? But there's a professional persona, and we need that in ufology. We don't need ufology dropping into a ghetto.
Right.
We need ufology to come up. It's scientific. What separates UFO investigations from all the others is it's a national security issue. And, when we go to these conferences, we wear suits, and pumps, your hair is done, your lipstick's on, it's the way to go. We go out in the field, you're in your jeans and, working clothes. So there are kind of those two personas, and they're both exactly who you are. But like Richard, he has a very professional, serious side when he talks about what he knows best, but he's so much fun, especially after a few brandies. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, plus he's letting his hair grow long. Okay, I've got calls lined up. *6, you're up, and everybody that's on hold, just be patient. I will get to everybody. Okay, *6, how you doing tonight? *6, 3, 2, 1. Gone. Okay, sorry about that. Richard's let his hair grow long, and it was, I did, the first time I had him on the show was about a year ago, and we did a live, in studio, presentation. We had about 250 people, a studio audience, and then he looked like Richard. And then we go out and we do Contact in the Desert like 8 months later, and his hair grew like a foot.
I know. And it's even longer now. And to be honest with you, and he knows this, I'm not the biggest fan of his hair like that. However, I'm the one that always tells him grow his hair, his goatee, because I like him. He kind of counts. I'm definitely, more the big sister. He's been to my house. He knows my husband. It's, we all get along very, very well. He just, I love the guy. I can't say enough. And to me, he is the biggest we have out here. He's very, very embedded in every aspect of ufology. And I've learned so much from him, so much. And he's connected to everyone. He's just amazing. There's no one bigger. I call him Big D for that reason.
This is a question came in via email. This is from Renee. She says, what prompted you to write a children's book on aliens?
That is such an awesome question. It's the first of its kind. I had no idea. I didn't set out to write a book. These are actually my grandson's questions. He was 5 at the time, and he knows what I do. He calls me Mims, and he asked, are aliens really real? Well, I wrote this conversation down because, little kids are so cool about it. It's in their cartoons, their video games. Aliens are completely in their culture. They're not afraid as much. But this little 5-year-old asked some of the best questions. Are they scary? Why don't they look like us? Do they talk like us? He had some really smart questions. I didn't want to answer it. And of course, the book doesn't answer, are aliens really real? Because I want to promote in him to look for himself. So this really was a conversation we had that I started out just wanting to do a little Shutterfly book or, something, for the family. And then the friends wanted them and somebody suggested I do this. And I'm glad I did, because what it does is when people feel like they've had contact or they've experienced something traumatic.
I've got another call. Star 6, you're on with us, but you've got a noisy line.
Oh, no.
Okay,
I've been having line problems all week. I'm sorry. Is it okay?
Yeah, go ahead. Say hi to Chase, man.
Well, I certainly am. How are you, Chase? I've got to tell you, Chase, don't worry about being accepted into this family. Mi casa es su casa, como él dice. It's really true. That's it's the way Jimmy is. This is a big family, and you're accepted. And, boy, I'll tell you I got 5 stars straight across the board tonight, and so don't you, Jimmy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
But I do have one question for you. I spent a lot of time in Peru, like 35 years, and I had one question that has to do with the 3 windows of the towers up there in Machu Picchu. Did you ever get into studying the 3 towers?
We didn't get to Machu Picchu. We were in Pumapuku, Tiahuanaco. We kind of stayed off the grid. Dr. Aaron Judkins, who was with us, the archaeologist, he actually left our team a few days early to go down to shoot for a documentary or something. Those TV people, Jimmy.
Oh, yes.
And, they're just cute as can be. And, but he left. I didn't actually get to go to Machu Picchu. I wish, though, because I would have gone.
I had an experience where I live in Peru. I can go out and dig up a mummy any day of the week in the Sechura Desert. However, the 3 windows, I was very fortunate to be the tour guide for a pottery expert out of a Canadian school. And they sent him down there. I'm in a Canadian college. They sent him down there for 2 years to study Peruvian pottery. Pre-Incan, and as you well know, pottery's got an awful lot of talking to do. And
oh my gosh, it does.
Oh yeah, and he packed up just cases, containers of it, and I helped him get it out of the country and all that type of thing way back then. But during that period, I sure learned a lot about pottery, and I just wondered if the 3 windows have the Inca used to throw pots out for I forget how many hundreds of years, but
yeah,
they would throw the pottery out the windows, and each layer had a different story that went on in depiction of the pottery at the time. It's pretty interesting reading.
It really is. And the pottery, the watering containers, and they have the little handles with, usually tripod stand. The little water containers I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It was Senior Juan who, as I'm standing there, and you guys, they love, every time my Rene would introduce me, first of all, they call me Chelsea for 3.5 weeks because my name Chase in Peru translate is Chelsea. I'm thinking, oh, what woman doesn't want to? I'll be Chelsea for 3 weeks. I could do this. But she would introduce me as the UFO investigator. And every time their eyes would light up. The people, they would just look and they'd want to tell me their UFO story. But it was Senior Juan that turned it upside down. And it was clearly a disc-shaped UFO. Like just the classic, some of the apparatus that are reported by tens of thousands of people, even into modernity. He turned that upside down and I about hit the floor. So very interesting. That pottery is amazing. And we found shards of it within the necropolis and some of the places that we visited with human remains. And when you said you could go outside and dig a mummy, I so believe it. Because while we were in Tiahuanaco, we went in to get like a little cup of coffee as a break. And the lady who owned the restaurant was building a home in the back. And as they were digging the foundation, they kept finding these elongated skulls and, these human remains. And she let us go back and look at them. So we were off the grid. We weren't just looking at museum pieces. We touched, physically handled, and examined, without exaggerating, I think Dr. Judkins and I estimate very close to 300 skulls. They're everywhere.
Thank you so much, Star 6. I've got calls lined up here, brother.
Oh, okay, I'll let you go. I just want to say one more comment before I fly, and that is, if you ever want to write lyrics in UFO, please do, because your Nashville lyrics are really great. I like
Thank you, Star 6.
Yeah, you understand. A tank of fuel with a Red Bull is a UFO statement for sure. Bye-bye.
I love it. Thanks so much. He's so cute.
Yeah, he's
the best show.
He's the best. He's the best. I've got him lined up here. Okay, hi. You're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Chase. Who's calling?
Hi, Chase. It's Mark from Gilbert, Arizona.
Oh, hey, Mark.
How you doing?
Good. I'm loving this show tonight. I'm having so much fun.
Yeah, me too. Hey, I don't have a question for you. I wanted to call in and talk about. I'm kind of been shy about doing this, but I wanted to talk about my own UFO experience.
Okay.
And
can you do it quick, Mark?
Oh, you betcha.
Okay,
yeah.
Do it. Fly.
You're always rushing me.
I'm trying to, it's Fader night. I've got Fadernauts just lined up here, and I feel bad for all of you guys. Me.
Yeah, we're short on time too, so
I'm just trying to be nice to everybody.
Yeah, well, maybe I could probably save it for another night, but I'll go through real quick. It was in Nevada. It was back in '92, so it's been some time, and it was on Highway 50, just out of Eureka. And when you drive across Nevada, you go through, you go between foothills. It's like just all desert out there, and it's just and between the foothills, I'm estimating it's between 15 and 25 miles across. And so it's about 2 a.m, and my girlfriend's just passed out in the passenger seat, and I'm munching on chocolate covered coffee beans, so my eyelids are pasted to my forehead.
Right.
And anyway, I look up in the rearview mirror, and I look up in the rearview mirror, and off in the distance behind me, I see a bright ball. When I say bright, it's not a moon at night. It's totally black out there. So when this thing actually comes up on top of the car, it's I would say it was compared. I mean, it wasn't that bright. It was more dimly lit. But anyway, it came from behind, straight up the highway, and this thing was really, really moving. It was about 150 feet off the ground, and it passed right over the top of the car and disappeared over the next set of foothills. And it all took place in about in the space of about between 5 and 10 seconds, an extremely short period of time. And one of the things I noticed about it was there was absolutely no noise. It was completely quiet, and it lit up the highway as it went, but it only lit up the highway and maybe just a little bit on either side of the highway. And then it just disappeared over the. I didn't even have time to nudge my girlfriend to wake her up to get a look at it. It was just gone that quick.
Wow!
But it was just one of the most amazing. It was a perfect sphere, about 50 feet in diameter, And I mean, I remember more things about it, but I don't want to take up a whole bunch of time. But I just kind of wanted to tell you about that and see what you thought.
I would love to hear more about it. I'm on Facebook. I'm a fader not, so you guys can have all my info. I would love to hear more, honestly.
Yeah, I did a report to MUFON, and somebody dropped me an email that they were going to call me about it. I didn't report it back then, and I really wasn't kind of a UFO buff or anything like that. I mean, after I saw it, I knew what it was. There was no doubt. You just know what you just when you see it, you know what it is. There's no question.
Wow.
But before that, I wouldn't exactly call myself a skeptic, but I had never seen one either. So
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll. Go ahead, Chase. Go ahead.
I was just going to say that, I love skeptics. They keep me honest, and they give me a lot of information about, how I can be better at, bringing the types of evidence that will support it, support our cases. I love, and I bring a healthy dose with me. I don't go in there and, somebody describes a large UFO and I'm like, oh my gosh, I bet that's the mothership. No. You do your job. You collect the data and then do the research, away from scene or whatever. But that, when you see something that's not supposed to exist, you know exactly what it is when you see it. It's crazy, isn't it?
Yep. Hey, Mark, thank you so much for the call.
Oh, hey, thanks for taking the call.
You got it. And I love Gilbert, Arizona. I'll talk to you, Mark. Bye.
All right.
I've got calls lined up here. Let's just go to the next one.
And the Twitter, I just want to send a shout out to Rolanda and Cortana and Les, Nancy Nurse. Oh my gosh, this group is rocking.
Yeah, it's insane.
Love them.
Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
This is Bear from Santa Clara. Permission to board the poop deck.
Okay, Bear. Say hi to Chase.
Hi, Chase, and welcome, fellow Fader or not.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to have another sister in there.
Yeah, totally.
Right. Party don't start till the girls arrive.
That's right.
Hey, you got it. I'll catch you later. Just wanted to say hi and welcome and a great show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bear.
All right.
Have a great night, Bear.
You
know
have a good
that.
one. Be safe, be well, and be cautious.
That's Bear. He's the bright light in my day. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Say hi to Chase.
Hey, Chase. This is Rick from Seattle, Washington.
Oh, hey, Rick. Seattle, Washington.
Yeah.
Wow.
How you doing tonight, Rick?
Doing pretty good. Getting used to the new environment.
Yeah, right on. So, what have you got for Chase tonight?
Well, quick story. This actually happened one night during Fader night in my backyard as I'm on the radio with you and Spaceboy. I'm standing out in my backyard, looking out in the desert, out in the hills, and all of a sudden this red light just starts glowing really big. And if you look at it like a cigarette cherry, dead on, it went up to be about that big. These mountains were like, I don't know how many miles out, but it's the mountain range between where my house was and Lake Mead, back when I lived in Henderson, Nevada. And the entire time, I'm on the show, and I'm thinking, don't say anything. Believe it or not, nobody's going to believe you, and they're going to think it's BS. But it lit up for about a good 10, 15 seconds, and then slowly faded out. And the next day I came home, there were helicopters all over that area.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's interesting. How come you never told me about this?
Dude, I mean, you got some guy on the air, and all of a sudden he says, hey, I'm seeing something weird. People are going to go, yeah, right. That's why I did. If you listen back to the show, when have you ever heard me stutter over anything that I said?
Yeah, totally.
If you listen back to it, you'll hear me go,
And again, there's, when you're seeing something so extraordinary, you think the first thing you want to do is run home and tell everybody. It's not. It's shocking how much, you have to go through a process yourself. Like I said, I told my husband right away, but my kids didn't hear this, or even my best friend I didn't talk to for months over this. I had to go through a process, and yeah.
Well, when they refer to it as the Oz factor, that is the best description of it.
Yeah, shock and awe, baby.
Yeah, I mean, you're just staying there in complete disbelief. And, I was just completely shocked and definitely at a loss for words. And it just was stunning. But what really killed me was I'm used to that area because there is a flight path in that area because it's kind of on the way to McCarran Airport. But this light was way too low in the hills. And the next day, when I saw it in full daylight, the one thing that puts in the skeptic factor, though, is it is in the area where there's power lines going through the desert, heading out towards like Bolton City.
Do you know that there's so many reports? We wonder if they gather energy somehow from power lines. Power lines are very important because one of the things I did when I got home, even after Tennessee, is why? What was so special about that area? Why was there such a concentrated something going on? Why the UFOs chose that area? And I found out that there were intersecting ley lines. There were mounds, sacred sites very close to the area. There was large bodies of water. There was a lot of reasons. The compound in the soil. We could have offered 15 different reasons. We keep thinking, what do they want? Well, think of it if we found tomorrow, a planet that had intelligent life on it, how many people would think that they needed to be on that exploration team? Virologists, biologists, psychologists, military, you got your spooks have to be there, just a big group, and everyone would have their own agenda on what they needed to study on this new planet with this intelligent life. So, is it our minerals? Is it Earth? Is it the water? Our animals? Are they monitoring us? Are we so special? It's amazing. And I really think that instead of locking ourselves into that one answer, it's a special place. Why wouldn't they want to know about the dolphins as much as the humans? We don't know that they're not abducted, right?
That's right. Hey, Rick, hey, thank you for the call, and I'll talk to you tomorrow, brother. Give my best to everybody.
Definitely. Take it easy. And also just a real quick shout out to Ken Lipson. We miss you, dude.
Yeah. What's up with Ken? Thank you, Rick.
Okay. Take it easy. Bye.
Let's just go right to the next one. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Chase.
Hello, Chase. How are you this evening?
I am awesome. Partying with, my peeps.
This is Dino. Say hi to Dino.
Hey, Dino.
How you doing? Now, I want to say that what you're doing and your personality is something that's needed in this movement. I just want to mention a couple of things. It's very hard. I'm glad to see some of our Fadernauts beginning to tell even more of their own experiences. I have not had one, but Richard Dolan's one of my heroes because of the way he approaches it, and Harry Cassidy approaches it a different way. And I think you're all very intelligent people, and we need to have you out there. I mean, it's only been the last year I will even breach this subject at work, and I'm already getting funny looks and such, even though I'm a respected person. I wish I had the freedom that you have to follow your dream and to be able to investigate and go places. That being said, I would just want to suggest, look at the milieu or the gestalt that you're in. You have a husband, a very high position in the military. You have to realize that you're being watched and listened to. Again, the fear factor doesn't need to come in, but be cautious.
Yes,
Well, the second thing, you can comment, but the second thing I would want to say is, you know martial arts and you're a cutie and you're in good shape and all that, and we love that. But if I were you, places you were going, I would have some kind of a weapon with me, just in case, just to protect your integrity. And I'm not a violent person, but I've learned that the police aren't going to protect you. We know that from a lot of the current news media stuff now, and the other thing is that just suggestions that have come on, some of the Fadernauts have brought them up. If that is a craft, whether it's one of ours or one of the others, they can use holographic projection, that creature or whatever it was that you saw. I mean, 3.5 feet is scary. That's like a child running around.
Yes.
And if it wasn't an actual being, a living entity, then I certainly believe that we have the Tesla-type technology to holographic beam something down, to make you see something, to make you think something, to manipulate your research and to manipulate your conclusions. So always be aware of your gestalt and the fact that, your husband, if you ever do too much and you start getting close to the truth, they may start to affect his career, I'm sorry to say.
No, and I agree, and we're prepared for that, and he's going to let me run. And I appreciate that so much because, it's a totally different military too. So, we won't get into personal and how we feel about the lack of leadership coming out of Washington right now. But, and what it's like to serve in today's military. But, I thank you so much. Thank you, because your concerns are valid, and there have been some sticky situations where I kind of wish I had a weapon. And I think to myself, well, that's just hardware, because let's face it, boys, I am the weapon, which is not true. Which is not true because, let's face it, I'm 5'1", 100 pounds. How am I going to handle, 3 200-pound men? So
exactly.
I'm not,
or whatever
I'm not
it is,
arrogant.
the alien.
But yes, absolutely. No,
the
absolutely.
aliens, as Phil Schneider showed us, they're not gods. They can be taken down by lead. So, if you ever were threatened, I'm not trying to be violent. Believe me, I come from a totally different background than yours. I don't really agree that the military needs to be as large or big as it is. If we ran our country right, people would be wanting to be our allies instead of our enemies. But that's a whole other political thing. That
Amen,
being said,
brother.
we need people from all sides of the spectrum, and I'm still pushing for disclosure hearings, even if only a bit of the blanket is lifted up, because I'm tired of people at work kind of looking at me funny, even though they respect me, like, what's up with him? Has he gone nuts? Because now, after many years, I'm openly talking about the research that I'm doing into this.
Good. And hold your head high, because 15 years ago, I was a crazy lady down the road that hunted UFOs. I'm now the hottest chick on the block. Everybody wants to tell me their UFO stories, their paranormal stories, because it is coming out in the open. And you're going to win this one. You're going to win this one. Hold your head high, honestly. And, how benighted of people to think, especially with the daily discoveries and headlines from NASA and MIT and, all these other agencies and institutions is the word I was looking for. All these institutions.
Excuse me, but that the average, what you're saying, I'll finish your sentence though, that the average person does not bother. They're too busy. They keep us scared. They try to, like, my mortgage is way too high. They tell me they won't lower it, even though I have perfect credit and I have a house that's appreciated. They say, why not? Well, you don't make enough money for us to lower it. Right. So this ridiculous banking and the IRS and scaring us about health concerns, everything to keep our minds off things like the plane, the MH30 that disappeared and they still haven't found, about what are we really seeing pictures from NASA. It goes on and on and on. That's why we need people like you and me, since you are one of the Fadernauts, to keep getting out the word and standing tall.
Thank you so much, Dino. Thank you, brother.
Thank you for that. See you next week.
I'll talk to you.
I'll just tell a little story if I can real quick about that. And, every once in a while, you get the military wives, and every once in a while there's one that's, superior and, a snotty, and you just kind of want to slap her around in the bathroom or something, but you can't. So you smile in the right places. But, she was introducing everybody and they were having a big bunko night, and I didn't make the bunko night because I'm working. And, she kind of made a point about, Chase, what did you do last week? We had a great time at Bunko. Did you have one of your little alien things going on? And I'm like, no, I was in D.C. at the Citizens Hearing for Disclosure, and I'm at the National Press Building with literally talking to, Congresswoman Kirkpatrick and, Edgar Mitchell, and I started naming off Paul Hellyer and some of these people. And I said, so, that's what I did. I said, I just got back. It was a great trip. I stood between a New York Times photographer and a CNN reporter in the press box. How was your bunko? It was awesome. Awesome, bitches. Really. It was epic. And, you have your moments,
Right.
and we kind of can't blame them because we don't know the hottest things going on in pediatric medicine because we're not paying attention. We're not researching. We're not looking. And even if a story comes up, it doesn't stay with us because it's not something we're interested in. So it's our job to be better, to get the public to, hear what we have to say, look at our evidence, look at the people talking. And we love our Edgar Mitchells and our Solaces and, big military and police officers. But let's not forget, little grandmom, in Kentucky, that it wouldn't lie to save her life.
Right.
Would never lie.
Right.
So witnesses are everything. And we as ufologists have to protect them better represent them. And it's my focus going forward.
Have you ever had, and we're right at the end of the evening, and thank you for hanging on for this extra time. Have you ever had a Men in Black moment?
No, but I have had police officers.
It's because of where you're a military wife, and you have your background. Has anybody ever come up to you I don't know if you'd even say this on the air, but have you ever had somebody tell you to chill out?
Yeah, I actually have had a few incidences that were, I felt as not only as though I was being followed, but there was, I'm working in MUFON and was told to cover something up and lie, which is why I'm no longer with them. And it wasn't MUFON as an organization that, was corrupt and did this. It was, a few people that in their benefit are no longer there for that reason.
Wow.
But, you're going to have people. We got pretty close. Star team manager, I supervised only the most experienced investigators on the most critical cases reported. We were jamming, we were rocking, and some people don't like that. So, yeah.
I can't wait to get you back on. By the way, one of our producers has joined us. Les, say hi to Chase before we let her go.
Is Les a producer?
Yeah. Les is with us.
I didn't know that.
Hey.
Hi, Les, darling.
Hey, Chase. Oh, my God. I cannot believe I'm actually talking to you. I loved Project White Paper.
Oh, my gosh.
Man. Are you going to come on another radio show eventually?
The show is just on hiatus. It's, Jimmy Church is doing radio. What is Chase Kloetzke going to do, right? Seriously.
Oh, come on.
No, and I mean that most sincerely. We've talked about this before. I had to give up something I like to do something I love. And I think, there's not a lot of people out here that can just pick up and go handle a situation for people that their whole world's just been turned upside down,
Well,
and
you realize, Chase, now that you're a fader-not, officially a fader-not, you have to come on the show at least once a month now.
Yeah, right. I was so thinking that, Les. I was so thinking that. I would love to talk her into it.
I would absolutely accept that right on the spot because sincerely, I'm a fan. Jimmy knows that. I love the show. Jimmy rocks. All you guys, I can't believe your audience. I have, and I've been in radio for 3 years. I've been on 2 different networks and, they're great audiences everywhere, but I've never seen anything like this.
It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
It's awesome.
Chase, you kicked the door into the sandbox and into the heart of every fader-not. You did
Serious? I can't wait to read the tweets. Yes. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And I'm going to let you go now. Thank you. I got to roll credits. We got to get out of here. Really quick. Are you speaking anywhere? We've got like 60 seconds. What are you doing right now?
Right now, I'm finishing up a metals case, and I'd love to talk about that when I come back because I can't wait to come back. And and just enjoying the holidays, and let's see what happens next year. It was a busy year this year, so
yeah, you had a great year this year. So be safe, and you and the family and everything else, and your husband. Just be safe out there. Have a great holiday. Thank you so much from all of us here at Fade to Black.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me, guys. It was so my pleasure.
Good night, Chase.
Thank you, Chase.
Good night.
Chase Kloetzke, everybody. Wow. Wow. That was a phenomenal time. And thank you so much, Chase. And everybody, just I expect all the Fadernauts to @Chase Kloetzke right now on Twitter and thank Chase for coming on tonight. That was absolutely amazing. Les, wow. That was pretty cool, wasn't it?
I'm speechless, dude. I've always wanted her on the show. She's cute, but I'm in love with her brain. I mean, she does paranormal too. She's everything. She's great.
We didn't get. Yeah, I wanted to save some stuff for another time. All of her Bigfoot and paranormal investigations, all of that stuff, and so we'll save all of that for another time. But what an extraordinary night it was here on Fade to Black. Just had a great time.
Oh, yeah. I had a great time, too. It was a great night.
So let's do this. Are you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
I'm ready now. Let's do this.
All right. Special thanks to Chase Kloetzke and all the callers who called in tonight. Stay tuned. Coming up next is Night Watch, followed by Spooky South Coast. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black executive producers Rita Camarion. Thanks to LJ3, that's me, Renee and Jonas. Announcers to Steve Harder, Gene Mateau, and Mark D. Kovar. Faded by Dale. Webmaster, Method of Signaling. Music by Doug Aldrich. Intro by SpaceboyMusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. And with that, we are
out of here. Everybody have a great, safe weekend. Thank you so much, Les.
Good night, brother.
Good night.